today. And if you are familiar with the agenda, you'll see there's lots to do. So forgive us if we talk fast today. We'd like to get through this by lunchtime, and we often don't. So we will begin. With the adoption of the agenda, there is one additional item that will be added to the Goat River Sustainability Plan. And with that, I would like to motion to adopt the agenda. Dr. Jackson, second, Dr. Kearney, all in favor? Okay. And we will receive the minutes of the November 6th, 2025. After I have a question, or are there any changes?
But Chair, could we offer freedom of the floor? We have three guests today. I'm going to pop off Board Chair Watson. We offer them freedom of the floor.
Yes, we should. Moved by Jackman, seconded by Vandenberg, all in favor? Okay, our guests do have freedom on the floor. And we will start with the delegation from Creston Football Club Youth Football Soccer Club. I don't see George here, so when George does appear, we will do that item. If he doesn't appear, I guess we'll
firmly postpone the item until they arrive. Or, Ange likes to see that usually that we either reorder or postpone that item.
Yeah, we will reorder that item. I think we'll try and get it done right after staff reports.
Yeah.
If he successfully appears before then, we'll put it at right after 7.2. So we can begin now with staff reports, and the first one would be with Tom Zool on the Christmas lights tour.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Respectfully through the chair, we were trying to get the Creston Valley Tour of Lights done again this year, but unfortunately there is no driver availability due to unforeseen circumstances. Neither one of the drivers that drive for Creston Valley can provide service over the Christmas holidays this year. We're looking forward to trying to provide the service again next year.
We're going to have to elevate volume here, Tom. Sorry. We have trouble hearing you. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Much better. Yeah, Robin elevated it here.
Okay, great. Yeah, unfortunately, we were unable to offer the Creston Valley Tour of Lights this year. There's no driver availability due to unforeseen circumstances. Both the drivers have things going on in their lives that won't allow them to do it this year. The contractor, Keolis Canada, was apologetic and said they're looking forward to trying to organize this again for next year. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to try and circulate the route so that if people want to drive the route and see the lights in their own vehicles or organize their own rides, yeah, we should be able to do that.
Okay. Any comments from directors? Go ahead, Director Vandenberg.
Good morning, Tom, through the chair. When you say circulate the route, of course, you know that we've been doing a little bit of chatter locally in the community on this. What would that look like? How would you circulate that?
Respectfully through the chair, I think what we'll do is we'll let people know that unfortunately we can't offer it. We'll do it through the RDCK work site. I'll pass it on to the visitor center. We'll say this is the route that was normally traveled. You know, if you want to go see the lights, this is an excellent route and a good opportunity to see, you know, the lights in Creston, see Creston at its best.
Supplemental?
Yep, if I may. So last year, remind me what timeframes we're talking about, and then if this does get circulated, say to the tourism center, when will that happen? So when was the dates last year, and when will? Yeah.
Respectfully through the chair, last year I think we drove on the 19th, the 21st, and the 22nd. We would have something over to the tourist center next week because there's no schedule this year. People will drive it whenever they want to drive it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Tom. We'll move on to the discussion item on Creston Valley Transit ridership, and I'm sure that's you again. It's Director Vandenberg, at least, with the discussion, with the request.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So based on Based on our conversation that we had last month, we're expecting a 10% increase for the transit budget this year. And with also knowing of the pilot projects that RDCK is working on through our CSLAC committee and its potential influence on the services, the level of services and the cost of transit in the future. My interest was to talk with the group to allow some further discussion. But my question to Tom would be, what would the service look like if we did not increase the 10%? What would have to change in order to not approve that 10% increase? Given that this is a service that's very well received by particular groups within our community, including our seniors. It does not affect our medical, I'm going to call it medical shuttling back and forth to Cranbrook. That's a separate deal, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Health connections.
Health connections, thank you. So it is more of the internal works of the services offered locally in the community, to which it's a certain percentage of our community relies on that. So those things I know, but my question still stands. And I don't know that you'll have an answer for me today, but I am interested in that for consideration on this budget.
Respectfully through the chair, all right, yeah. It would be a reduction in service ultimately, but I would have to go back to BC Transit and have that discussion with them about how many service hours we would lose. Pulling service hours out about any fixed routes would be much more challenging, so that it would have to come out of the custom hours. So we would be reducing any services effectively.
Would you be able to respond to that by probably the next meeting? We'll need that information for budgetary decisions.
Respectfully to the chair, that's correct. I would talk to BC Transit about that probably this week. We're getting very tight on that timeline to change things. Creston's a small system, but we do have contracts with operating companies, so I need to check in about those contracts with those operating companies look like, and at what point, what is the trigger point for changing services? And how much cost savings can be realized?
Director Jackman.
Yeah, through the chair, Tom, what would help us, I think, is if we kind of had the breakout, and again, everybody would get the reminder then, like you just alluded to, we have our fixed route and then we have on demand. To change or save money on fixed routes, what would be needed is a time machine, because BC Transit won't change those fixed routes without a period of notification, because it impacts people's jobs, livelihoods, ability to participate in activities where they're relying on that necessarily. So I think BC Hydro or BC Transit needs like 6 months or more to advertise route changes. So without a time machine, that amount we're going to pay for. So having the breakdown between how much of the total budget is allocated to that, and how much of it is 1/3 of the budget that would go to the on-demand, which, as you just noted, that's flexible. Because what we might find is there's diminishing returns. You might say to save 10% on the budget, you have to reduce the on-demand by 40% or something like that, because you still have to pay the cost of a bus. Like, incrementally, to reduce service to the point where we needed one less bus, that's not going to happen. So there's fixed costs, there's the routes that we can't change without an advertising period of time. And then there's the part of the budget that's more flexible. So understanding how the money is sitting here, and here might help us realize either we need a longer term process where we look at all the routes together, or we may have very limited ability to reduce our taxation in 1 year without a little bit of planning, a little bit of notification to the ridership. So it'd be a three-way breakdown, I guess.
Respectfully through the chair, and to further complicate matters, there's the disjoint between our fiscal year, right, which is January, and the provincial fiscal, which of course starts April 1. So there's a 3-month offset in there as well that sort of needs to be taken into account when we deal with these things. But I will put this question to BC Transit and have an answer for you at the next meeting.
Director Vandeman.
Just to add, Tom, we had, I think it was last meeting, I'd asked do the transit buses have the ability to have the bike racks up front? And you are unsure at that time? They do. I've noticed them, in the community, so, just wanted to, don't take that off your list. Already checked into it.
Okay, thanks, Tom. We'll move on then. Our delegation still has not arrived, so we'll go with 8.1, a discussion item on dangerous dog service establishment bylaw. And Director Jackman has requested the discussion be added to the agenda.
Great. And, sorry, my notes are up here. So, so Tom gave us some good information, and I have about 4 different excerpts from bylaws and reports open here. But, I guess the key is we were given a report with, as is appropriate, I guess, where Tom looked at how much could this service cost? And the projection for 2026, 27, and 28 was taxation in the order of almost 140,000 a year. And then in theory, dropping down to 90-something thousand a year, which is a lot of money. And out of that, there's projected contract costs and allowances for a facility establishing a dog pound. And I understand that some of this analysis was based on services already existing within the regional district, sort of a comparison. Cost per capita, because more people, more dogs, that all made a great deal of sense. But it had stuck in my mind that we still haven't seen an apples to apples comparison in any of the existing dog control services to what we're asking for. So maybe the closest is Nakusp and Area K. And Area K like carries 90-some% of that tax burden. There they had pulled back that they didn't want to respond to barking dogs or dogs that are kind of the nuisance stuff. They wanted to focus on attacks where there's a bite and some kind of an emergency call. But that service, as I read back through and I went back to 18th of July 2024 is when we finally, that was punted on for some time, finally came to a decision a year and a half ago. That still included responses to dogs at large, and it had the requirement of somebody had to be able to respond Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., ensuring that they'd be ready to take calls of concerns. Then they'd have to judge, well, if this is a nuisance call or dog barking, say, no, we don't do that. But if this is a dog at large, that was still included. And that would include a lot of travel and stuff that is not practical for us. There's dogs at large everywhere, in Area A at least. And we're not going to respond to that. Then the other comparisons I did, and I had to roll back to May of 2024. The area's IMJ dog control. Oh, and sorry, and that was Area K primarily, and a bit of cost, 23,600 a year. And yeah, it would be inflated. And population wise, it's a lower population, but it's a big territory. So I didn't see an apples to apples comparison to the fact that they're responding to dogs at large. Then I went to areas IMJ. Now, population wise, they're less than half of our population and fairly tight area. Their contract includes both of those contracts, the custom and this one, includes the kennel itself. They have to be able to provide a kennel. So that expense, that's 15,600. Area IMJ, you can drive from one end to the other in 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but you can get 80% of the population in Creston Valley and A in the same time. In 20, 30 minutes, most of the population are concentrated right here. And yeah, once in a while, it'll take a while to get up to Crawford Bay or up to Yaddock. But the occurrence of those wouldn't be the majority necessarily of the cases or calls to deal with. So again, as apples to apples, their total cost back, again, May 2024 was 15,600 a year, including all of the equipment. There's a list of the equipment and the vehicles supplied under that cost and the kennel. And that one would investigate all complaints. Again, apples to apples, we just want the dangerous dog bite callouts. So to me, it seemed that I understand the caution in establishing a budget, but our numbers are going to scare voters if we go to referendum, and we'll have nothing again in this multi-year process. The other ones I was trying to dig up and I just ran out of steam or ran out of time, it's the E&F ones, because I do believe they still include patrols. Now, some of the patrols are at the park service like Hagen Beach, or the other one is in Walter's, Director Popoff's area. And those patrols were very limited. They were summer only and identified as a separate cost. And then I do believe that those current contracts still had some allowance of so many hours a week for general patrols in portions of area E or F or a part of area H. Sorry, not H. H is, that's why Director Popoff would be on this call to hear this conversation. So again, it's not apples to apples. So I'm quite concerned, realizing there's tons of other work to do. I'm quite concerned that the projected costs for getting out the gate, that in the first 3 years, it's going to be upwards of $400,000 to get this established. Two big concerns. One is we can't telegraph to community and bidders that, hey, there's a ton of money here. Put in a price and see what happens. We get way too many times we go for a request for expressions of interest, we get one bid. And then we just go on a big 6-month loop trying to get it back down. So we need to go at the gate, in my mind, with a number that, as Mr. Dool said, will not get us in trouble of falling short of not having enough money if for some reason, because it's a new service, we get 3 or 4 dogs that have been biting other people, all of a sudden be investigated. That may or will happen. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen every year. Because once we get a handle on it, we should be able to contain things within I think, a smaller budget. Closer to what these other services are. If we don't show what I think would be a smaller budget and it gets voted down, we've taken a great deal of staff time, community goodwill, and kind of tossed it aside. If we underestimate it and we are forced because there's a court case or some legal issues that we hadn't adequately budgeted for the first year or two, we could possibly consider a short-term borrowing. We're not allowed to run a deficit, but we are allowed to take some other measures to make up the shortfall. So I don't know where to go with this. The numbers scare me. I can't see us going out to the community and saying, this is what the service.
Yeah. Joe wanted to address your concerns. Go ahead, Joe.
Just because we have public and everything on, we just want to make sure that we talk about how we do things in the district in a way that doesn't cause fear. Number one is we always get the choice of awarding or not awarding a contract. Even if there's only a single bid, we can choose to say, no, that doesn't meet our requirements for price. It doesn't meet our requirements for this. It's not something that we're going to go forward with. And we've done that lots in the district. Number two, I know that there's always this funny balance when it comes to establishment bylaws about what we're equating as a maximum taxation to a budget. And we know that those two things don't equal. I mean, in this service, we could, I can't remember what the maximum requisition, but I think it's around $8 million for this service. If we were using that maximum, sorry, you're right, Gary. I got to say what it is for the community complex, but we don't tax $8 million. We don't do that. So I think that's always important to remember that as a committee, as a board, we have all these other controls in place for that. But I do understand that challenge of when we go to referendum, that's sometimes can be a really challenging thing to communicate. So I'm going to stop there because I don't think, the experts on the dog service is not me, but I just wanted to make sure that community understands that we don't often tax to the max, and we have other controls in place to ensure that we're getting good value.
Sangeeta has her hand up.
Go ahead, Sangeeta.
Thank you, Chair. And I believe that the bylaw didn't make it on the agenda, and that's I missed it. Sorry, I'm not feeling great, so I'm just, if I start coughing, I'll stop. I have contact. So just to add some details to this, I was asked if I could check in with the RCMP and with pause, and I did do that. We also had Brandon in the city connect with Eric on what they do with dog control service out of the town of Creston. And in regards to pause, they have told me that because they mostly foster dogs and they have volunteers who do that work in maintaining the facility for the dogs, that they would not be interested in taking on a dangerous dog. I also had a chat with the RCMP, and it was a good conversation. They are more than willing to respond to dangerous dog incidents. They just don't have a facility to add to hold a dog. So when we do go to contract, and currently, I just wanted to correct one thing. In Area K, it's only a specified area around the village that is the service area. It's not the whole of Area K yet. That is a request by the director to make it broader. And in regards to I and J, they're in close proximity, ENF similarly. And all of those dog control officers have kennel facilities. So we add that to the contract, if they have that facility, that they are able to hold the dog. When a few years ago we had a dog bite that became quite contentious, and we incurred heavy costs in Area K in the village for housing the dog, it was only because the person who owned the dog would go into the kennel that the dog control officer had and break the dog out. And that caused damage, and it was break and enter and all of that stuff. So we moved the dog to a facility that the person did not know before we could deal with the issue. So I just want to add that in. The RCMP does not have a kennel facility. We've already discussed that, but they're more than able to respond to dangerous dog complaints. And the way we talked about it is if a dog bites a human, it's likely the human is going to end up at the hospital and then contact either the RDCK or the RCMP. The RDCK, if we have a dog control contractor in place, they can respond even on weekends and all of that. They're available for that kind of response. If it's staff, then that would be a little bit more difficult, as we don't work weekends and stats. So as far as complaints are concerned, we need someone to receive complaints for dog control service, I guess 24 hours, if that's something that is desired, which is what is built into the budget that Tom prepared, is that dog control officer is available. We can reduce those hours and maybe even seek out, and that would be through the contract negotiations. We could see what we could negotiate with a potential contractor. So at this point, I would say I agree with everything that's been said about the value of the service being high, but we anticipate that ultimately when we go to contract that we would be able to negotiate a better deal and get a dog control officer that could be responsive and supportive of the RCMP throughout the week.
Yeah, I see hand raised, and I think I'll start with you, Eric, and I see Walter, you have your hand raised, and then I think Gary wants to comment, but I'll start with you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Just to further, when we look at the areas of, say, Area K up in the cusp, the population density is a lot less than what we're seeing in Area A, B, and C. There's a higher population density in those areas where that service level, that service is probably going to be used a lot more than what we're seeing in Area K because the population is not as high. The amount of calls that we see up in that area, and this is a forecast I think Tom has done to support the numbers that you're seeing because of the size of the area and the population density, and we're also in a rural farming community where these dogs are we have dangerous dogs in the area.
Walter, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, the comment that Director Jackman made about Creston Valley Beach It's not necessarily for dangerous dogs. It's dogs on the beach. A lot of swimmers bring their dogs to the beach, and the dogs basically run around and disturb the other people that are on the beach. So that patrol is there, not on a regular basis, it's an ad hoc basis, but to ensure that there's no dogs on the beach. Now, going back to Area H, I've been looking at this dog control bylaw since I think it was 2011. And we have a rail to trail going from Slocan down to the dam in South Slocan. And that was where most of the incidents occur. And neighbors that have dogs along the trail or whatever, they're not on a leash, they're not fenced in, and they go and intimidate people. And there's been quite a few dog bites in the area. And I received those calls, and probably Eric has compiled a list of how many complaints that have been received. So that's the intent of the the dog control bylaw in Area H. But Area H extends all the way from Summit Lake down to the dam in. It's a large area. And there's also a rail to trail from Roseberry to Summit Lake. And that's where most of the incidents occur. So just to expand on that, like when I take a look at the requisitions there, for Area H perspective, I am comfortable with the requisitions. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Dr. Jeff,
Yeah, so, yeah, we know PAWS does not support euthanasia, so it's one of the outcomes. 3 things happen with the dangerous dog. The dog is returned to the owner with conditions. The dog is relocated entirely to somewhere else, because someone else's responsibility, or the dog is euthanized. So no surprise with PAWS. That doesn't mean there aren't other existing kennels in Creston Valley, because there are. But this budget includes an allowance of almost $84,000 over the first 3 years of the establishment of the kennel. It combined with the wages, it allows for about $100,000 a year for the contractor. And that is my concern. I recognize, and I thought Area K had expanded because I saw it through the various reports, but even if it's not cost plus case, so even if it was, it cost, but whatever, 12, 13, 1400 plus surrounding area, 2,000 people, it's still somewhat spread out. The point is, are we going out of the gate with an apples to apples or a proper comparison of expectation? And us still had, includes a response to dogs at large. That is an entirely different thing from a dog bite. Entirely different. You would expect dogs at large calls to be 10 or 20 fold or 100-fold the actual bites. So this comes down to the contractor making an assessment. You don't take a dog at large as something that you have to drive out and go look at or anticipate going to look at. This is very much, in my mind, has always been for years and years, support the RCMP in their work with someone who's qualified to apprehend, contain, and house an animal until there's a decision as to its disposition. That is the entire service that's needed. Don't need noise complaints. The person will answer the phone and say, no, barking dog is not an issue you could talk to by law, you, Mr. Bacon. A person says there's a dog wandering in my property. That's not what we're doing. This is a limited, confined, has the dog been aggressive to the point, threatening humans, biting a human to the point where RCMP would respond. That's the conversation that's to be had with the RCMP. That's the number of calls per year that this should be based on, not the sorts of calls and expectations we've seen in other services. Personally, I don't care what the expectation is around dogs at large or barking dogs in other areas. I very deeply care about the times we've heard the same dog gets bit. The RCMP have not been in a position to do anything but shoot the animal. They are reluctant to shoot an animal on the spot. Get into the conversation around that. RCMP officer discharges their sidearm. I'm certain that it's days of paperwork as to exactly what happened in line. Much more orderly and better for the community if we have simply the mechanism to accompany the RCMP, apprehend the animal, and contain it until we go through the process of what its disposition is. So this service I do not see as being equivalent to any of the services we've tried in the past. I'm very concerned to signal to me that we have $100,000 a year for contractors set on this with very loose expectations as to what that person's going to be delivering in terms of service. And I'm very concerned that the total budget at almost 140,000 is gonna have voters inclined to say, no, there's gotta be a better way. Because I myself am saying there's gotta be a better way. So I'm at a loss. We can go over these numbers and if it's voted down, and then what? And I'll just leave it there. I do think a closer look at the numbers is warranted, but I'm not the person who has to stand behind them in the long term, so just.
I'm just gonna ask you a simple question now. Given your concerns, is there a recommendation you could put forward to address that? Is there something you could add right now that would address these concerns to make this staff cognizant of what we need to do?
Well, I've said before, I don't expect PAWS to take these animals. But there are other kennels, so there could be a conversation with other kennels to get some real numbers on boarding an animal and if they're to take an aggressive animal.
Again, would you,
So these are the background steps. The other thing is to go to the existing contractors and maybe get a little more detail on if it's hay in the cusp and dogs at large are included. Maybe that person will say, yeah, about 80% of my calls are dogs at large, and 20% are threatening. There's gotta be a little better analysis, I feel. And I know Tom and others have put huge time on this, but I would like to see more confidence that we are having the focus only on one group of events. So we come out of the gate with an appropriate budget. And then on the administrative side, if we fall short in year one and we're $20,000 short, can we make that up with a 5-year borrowing? Because that's within our rights, but going back to community, like it or not, there's some latitude out there. I don't know, if there's nothing to be done, then the rest of the directors will vote on this, go into referendum, we'll see what happens.
Joe, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Tom. Sorry, Tom.
You're below Joe on the screen there, Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Respectfully through the chair. I just want to explain something, and it's process, really. I mean, when I put together numbers, really what I'm shooting for is to place in that bylaw a maximum annual allowable requisition, right? Worst case scenario. So I have to take the high side numbers on everything because that's the maximum amount, okay? This is not an operating budget. It should not be interpreted as an operating budget. If this is the actual operating budget, things have probably gone horribly wrong. Right now, we have multiple dogs in dog jail. People are getting bitten all over the place. There's all kinds of things going sideways. You know, I would encourage the committee to consider, you know, again, directing staff, and I know Manager Sudan and Manager Stout are already digging into this to try and look at sort of, okay, how do we look at some of these costs? How do we pare some of this down? But again, this is a maximum amount. This is a very conservative view of things. When I was putting together these numbers and looking at this, all I can work with is the data that I have and the existing contracts. And Director Jackman is completely correct. There is no apples to apples comparison available because we're not actually doing this any other place. This is a new approach to things. And again, with a new approach to things, the direction I took was very conservative because I don't know how this is going to work. And we don't really have a lot of evidence around this in-house to work with. The committee may choose to just constrain the costs to say we're just not going to pay more than that on any given year for these services. And that's entirely within the purview of the committee.
Chair Watson, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I should have asked this when we originally received this, but I'm just curious. What we're really talking about here is that people are extremely irresponsible with their dogs. And we're looking at extreme costs to deal with things that really should be people that are responsible owners. We can't change that. But what I'm wondering is, can we fine people significantly for causing these issues? Is that included in this in any way? And if that's a whole other way to go and it'd be a different conversation, that's fine. I just think we're chasing something that really doesn't ever go away, and it gets more and more expensive in rural areas. And I don't want to discount that this is important to AB and C, and who I think Creston's in this. But it just really, Creston's not in this. It's just really disturbing how much time and effort and energy we have to put into managing dogs that are just not being well cared for.
Eric, you probably have an answer to that.
Yeah, my lens on ticketing is not something that I would look at to offset costs. Ticketing is a tool to gain compliance, and that's how we approach ticketing. It's not something I appreciate Director Watson's comments about the unruly dogs we see in the district. Ticketing is it's not a tool to kind of it's a tool to get compliance, but not something I would consider to be reflected on cost recovery. If that helps at all. The dangerous dogs is there's requirements in the Local Government Act regarding this, and this is something that we need to remember when we're looking at this, is that there is a layer in the Local Government Act for us to be able to provide this service, which we don't, and the RCMP have been handling it so far, and it's getting to a point where the RCMP is looking to us to fulfill, and provide them that assistance with a kennel and an officer to handle this in a manner that they're not able to.
Director Vandenberg.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to everybody who's spent some time in this. So we're really looking at, in my mind, we're really looking at two things: the opportunity to deal with dangerous dogs, and that comes at a cost. The cost is the thing that's being challenged at this point in time. But there's also a need in the community to deal with nuisance calls, those type of things. But to a lesser degree, that's kind of being looked at as a separate item. So I guess one of my questions would be, is if we were to proceed with a dangerous dogs bylaw, would we then be able to come back with a nuisance call bylaw later on down the road? Would be that one question. But is there an opportunity to combine the both today? And I know this has been kicked around for quite some time. I don't want to muddy the waters, but in my mind, if the concern is addressing dangerous dogs at the cost that's provided, if we then as a group said, well, let's take a look at that and reduce that 30%, or keep it the same and add a mechanism for nuisance dogs and compliance ticketing, a call center provision, if you will. That doesn't mean that somebody has to be responding all the time. That means that constituents are able to call in, report their concerns, and then that can be followed up by the bylaw officer later, and compliance could be achieved perhaps through ticketing or education. But you've got two elements. One is dangerous, one is nuisance. Can we put them together under the same amount that's being proposed just for dangerous? Is my question out to the group. Or do we just ask Tom to reconfigure the budget, reducing it by, say, 30%? Both examples have to be approved by our constituents. So to Director Jackman's point, we've done so much stick handling through this that if we go to the public for referendum, we need to at least go with a chance that it can fly and make sense. So let's keeping that in mind. Can we offer both for what you're proposing, Tom? Or can we offer dangerous dogs only at a reduction, call it 30%?
Sangita, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, we already have a nuisance bylaw and we have a noise bylaw, and both of those kind of help address issues like a dog barking and or I guess under the nuisance bylaw, we haven't yet had a dog complaint that we needed to deal with, but it could potentially be a nuisance dog, like, in some circumstances. So we could look at reviewing that bylaw to include more of those nuisance things that would be attached to a dog at large, for example. But keeping in mind, this dog is not just about dangerous dogs. We changed the name of the bylaw to dangerous and or aggressive and dangerous dogs. I can't remember which goes first. For an aggressive dog, if there is a complaint, that dog has been, either nipped at someone or something to that effect, or another animal, the contractor would have to take that dog, go to the dog owner, register that dog, and monitor that dog's behavior going forward. So that's an added piece. That's not part of Section 49 response to dangerous dogs, but that is more that a person, a contractor, would have to go and deal with that aggressive dog complaint as well. And that would take some time and effort to monitor and then ongoing manage that situation. And however it ends up being resolved. And then eventually, if that dog, for example, became dangerous in that they really injured someone, then that would be also something the dog control officer would be doing. And yes, we don't have a service like this. And it is hard to compare it to the existing services, which only deal with the Section 49 piece. Specifically, they assist the bylaw officer in dealing with a dangerous dog incident. So whenever there's a dangerous dog incident in our existing dog control service areas, a bylaw officer is also involved. Why we have that is to ensure that that situation is being dealt with at a standard that the regional district has established for legal services and so on. So my response on what Director Vandenberg is saying is we could probably deal with nuisance situations under the nuisance bylaw related to dogs, but keeping in mind this dog is not just about a dangerous dog, it's about an aggressive dog as well. And we have in the bylaw the ability to register an aggressive dog and monitor that dog over time as well. And so this dog control officer would hopefully, if we are able to successfully hire someone, deal with those two issues in addition to providing kennel services and being available to respond to calls when asked, using their vehicle to go to that site, dealing with the issue. So the equipment may be something they purchase, not us. They would come equipped with that stuff, so we could maybe consider removing equipment. So these are not just it's a broader service provision versus what it is now. Sorry, I'll leave it at that.
Director Vandenberg?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for that clarity. I wasn't aware that we had a nuisance bylaw that also included dogs as well. My only question to follow up on that is there a ticketing provision in there for compliance currently?
Yeah, through the chair for the nuisance bylaw, there is.
Thank you.
If we were to ticket, yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to wrap this up because we have a lot of agenda items, and what we do know is that there's a strong desire from our constituents to protect themselves from dangerous and nuisance dogs. So having said that, we just have to do our budgets and put our heads together to decide basically what level we want to go at. And I think I'm hearing from Director Jackman that we want to start smaller rather than larger. Is that correct?
Yeah, focused to ensure that we're only asking somebody to come out for it. Yes, it's the dangerous and aggressive dog in the bylaw. That is how it's been framed now, that they have a narrow scope. The barking dog would go to noise. And the dog at large, I just don't see as a practical thing to consider. So there's no point having patrols for dog at large. As they say, there is a little bit of an overlap in existing services, that kind of patrol mentality. You don't want to have a prospective bidder think they're gonna have to just start driving around and see what's going on.
So then are we going to ask staff to provide us with a reduced budget figure for this? Because that's.
I think I've done that at rural and I've done that before and I'm doing it again. I think that we need to post apples to apples, look at this budget to see if within the professional estimate of staff that we maybe have too big of a number coming out of the gate. Make sure we don't scare the electorate into saying, oh, there's gotta be a better way. There's another way. People shoot dogs in our community. That's such a fact.
We don't
I
recommend.
don't like that, and I want to make sure we have a successful outcome with this. not this vigilante thing that we've seen for many, many years, at least on the East Shore. We need a replacement. We don't want to scare people away from that replacement mechanism, assisting the RCMP to do the right thing.
So am I understanding then that direction of staff is to come back to us in January with reflection on the
budget?
On the budget? Should we give them something to shoot for?
Yeah,
Chair, I don't know if that's appropriate. I just asked for that little bit of closer scrutiny when staff have time. And as I said, I know there's a lot of stuff going on. It's budget time, at large. I think it could be an element, a little closer scrutiny about these numbers. The other ones, as Manager Sudan just pointed out, they come with their own equipment, their own vehicle. That's all part and parcel of the contract allowance. Yeah, they come with their own kennel. And if they don't have a kennel, they're elected to offer somebody up to $84,000 to establish a kennel. That just doesn't make sense.
so again, direction to staff would be that they present us with some options at a reduced cost. So that when we get to budget time, we have something to look at. Okay. That's what we're asking then, is to give us some options at reduced costs and what that means. So as long as we get that before our final budget meetings, I guess that's the important part. So
Just for clarity, that would be at the next Valley Services meeting, correct?
it would need to be probably just keeping pace with budget. I would assume.
Okay.
That's what we're asking. I hope you can help us with that. We'll move on to our next item, Creston Museum and Archives. Tammy is here. Come up front, Tammy, please. Out as well.
This one. Oh, continuing, I don't need to do instructions. Down here. Okay, so yeah, we're here to tell you we've had a very successful year again. We're looking at about 500 people, maybe 50 more on site. But through all of our different programs, 65% of those are local. Our drop-in visitors in the summer tend to be out-of-town travelers, but everything else we do is focused on connecting with the local community. And we have expanded our programming to a certain extent. We've added a brown bag history program, and we'll be starting to go into New Horizons approximately once a month, starting in January. And we're also seeing very high levels of repeat visitation in these locally focused programs. One thing we have noticed this year is an increase in the number of things people are doing when we're connecting with them. You know, they're not just coming in to walk through the museum, they are bringing in things they want to donate. They're asking us for information about stuff that isn't on display. We spend quite a bit of time running up and down the stairs, accessing things in the archives for them. And we haven't been tracking that up until now. It's basically just an observation. But when I look back on it, this sort of thing that I remember in past years happened what I would call occasionally. And now it seems to be happening every single time that I'm called on to staff the museum. So it is a noticeable uptick. We're looking at how we can track that without making visitors stat recording an extremely overwhelming and complicated task. And we're looking ahead to all sorts of things. We've recognized that we have a couple of opportunities to boost our earned revenues, primarily through increasing rental revenues for the car building and the grounds. We're working on that. And also through our gift shop. That, of course, is going to take an investment. The reason our gift shop has not been a huge revenue generator for us, or even a small revenue generator for us, is because we've simply not had the funds. You can't get people coming in specifically to visit a gift shop if your budget for supplying it, for providing the inventory is $500 to $750 a year. So for our budget going forward, we have allocated $5,000 this year. See what we can do with it. It'll take some time to build that up, but we're working on it. We're also finally starting to line up some facilities improvement projects. The car building that we rent out has, over the last number of years, has become a maker space for seniors groups, and we are working on some improvements to improve its ability to do that. And still be available for what we need it. Occasional meetings or workshops or exhibits, that sort of thing, classroom space. And most importantly, the main washroom in the museum is not at all accessible to anybody with any kind of a mobility device, whether it's a walker or a cane or leaning on somebody's arm or children in strollers. There is a pinch point. It's maybe 30 inches wide. You can't get anything through there. That is a huge project. It basically means tearing apart the whole building, stone building, old building that was not built with any kind of building code in mind. So as soon as we start doing any kind of accessibility work, we are having to get into needing building code as well. So that unfortunately is rapidly shaping up to be a $50,000 project. So we are applying for funding for that. If you've gone through our report, you'll see there's quite a few things on that list of things that we're looking at doing over the next couple of years that are funding in progress, or we're just waiting to hear about the funding on those. So hopefully we can move ahead with a couple of those this year. One of our greatest challenges, and this is where we're at today, is staffing. We do all of this. We do a phenomenal amount of work in the community, and we do it all on the backs of the equivalent of 1.75 staff people. And that includes an approximately quarter-time maintenance person who does not do any of the visitor engagement or community engagement work. And it is not enough. We are barely able, in fact, I would say we are not able to sustain even what we are doing now with that staff. We are dealing with serious cases of staff exhaustion, overwork, and burnout. To give you a bit of an idea, I have 38 days worth of overtime accumulated right now. So I will never, ever be able to recoup that. So, and that's just how much extra work this is requiring. And our summer staff, we rely on external funding for summer staffing. And those funding programs are massively oversubscribed. We are seeing a steady decline in what we receive, even though our applications are scored very highly. We always get very high scores, amongst the highest scores in the funding applications. The money is just not there. So we are expecting more and more and more on fewer and fewer staff hours all the time. So we are here to ask you for an increase of $35,000 in our core funding that will help us, first of all, address some shortfalls in our CPI, our funding increases relative to CPI, address some rising facilities costs. Our two biggest budget items, staffing and facilities operating costs, are increasing at annual rates that exceed the standard CPI by 2 or 3 times, 4.3% in the case of staffing and 6.1% in the case of facilities operations, compared to this year's CPI of 2.2. So that is eroding our ability to do these things. And then $25,000, which represents the incremental cost of turning our existing part-time position into a full-time.
So before I open it up for questions, I just want to compliment you on the quality of your report and the way you played out the figures. I think you've done a great job of that, and I appreciate how you've done that. Yeah, you did a lot of them. Yeah, I think that I like how it played out, and I appreciate your information. And also we appreciate how much has changed and developed in just a short time there. I think it's tremendous. So just wanted to say that before we open up for questions.
Can I make one more?
Yes, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to comment on, we really have a new vision for the museum, trying to make it more of a community hub. And to do that, of course, we need more people to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that getting funding for additional staffing positions is very difficult. So we kind of want to move to a new model. We'd really like to hire this new person, a full-time person, so they can manage our volunteers better, to recruit volunteers. And we have lots of people around the community that express a real interest in the museum, and we know they'd like to be involved. So if we could have this full-time position, I think going forward for a lot of the expansion of the museum and our programs, I think we could do it through volunteers. We have enough people that are interested, but we need the people to organize that and make that happen. So really that's a big component in that, converting that part-time position to full-time position.
Thanks for that. Dr. Vandenberg, start with you.
Great, thank you through the chair. Yeah, a lot of information in here, but it's really well done. I have not had a chance to digest it all, which I will do. But
It's
the
okay, it
thing
took
that,
me like weeks to put it together, so you have weeks to figure it out.
thank you. I just have a couple of qualifying questions, though. You provided in Appendix A your financials. But I'm interested to know your year-to-date column? To what month is that? It doesn't
End of
say.
October.
Oh, that's the end of October?
Yeah.
Okay, and then I guess I just want to clarify the staff component requirement. You had mentioned that you're sitting at about 1.75 right now. So then are you proposing to increase that to 2.75? Is that the idea going forward?
That would be awesome if we could, but it'll
But
take
isn't
more
that
than
what you're asking
35,000. No, basically, we're looking at 2.25.
Oh,
Altogether.
2.25
So our
going forward?
0.5, the museum assistant role that's half-time right now, we turn that into a full-time operations manager role.
So that will change over time again. That 2.25 would be that going forward to 2026 and then just keep going that way?
Yeah, we'd be at 2.25 for the foreseeable future.
Okay, and then if I may, last question. On your little quick revenues and expenses, I noticed that your expenses, so 2025 is 230,000, you're running up to 299, 300,000, and then you're coming back down in 2027 to 282. Why that change in expenses in terms of your prediction?
The 2026 budget includes that $50,000 change,
The water.
50,000 and change dollar washroom renovation.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that's 68,000 is the difference there. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got the washroom renovation, we need to do a new roof on the car building, and we're looking at doing, that's also the renovations inside the car building to turn it into a more effective makerspace.
So capital.
Yeah.
Invest in the capital.
So one-time expenses.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the report. It was very well done.
Dr. Jack McCready.
Thanks. So first question isn't to you guys, but it's to point out to our guests online, visiting directors. On page 3 of 18 of the report, you will see a colored pie chart. That's Amy, to you, our conversation yesterday about how a pie chart makes it so easy to see where the money's at.
This was not,
I did get a smile on that. So Dr. Vandenberg did ask, year-to-date, October 31st, that helps because looking at things like hydro or utility costs. From year to year, you'll have a better year or a worse year, and I was just trying to figure out if you had a projected year-end small surplus this year, or if you know, and if so, does that go into your?
yeah, we are looking at a projected surplus, sorry, too many pages here. Projected surplus this year of about, where's that? Yeah, looking at our budget, about $3,800.
Yeah, I didn't see it went through the sheet, so, and then, so that, depending on your show budgets, it looks as though you've been putting your, if you're, you're lucky enough with not a bad year for smoke clearing, for utility cost, stuff like that, that then rolls to your operating reserve and then pull back. So
Yeah.
what's your current operating through the chair, sorry, what's your operating reserve balance and how?
Right now we have $285,000 sitting in term deposits. 135 of that represents our operating funding for 2026 because the funding that we get from regional district comes in August, so we just kind of sit on it until January. And yeah, we are looking at drawing 15,000 out of that for this year that's what's helping us show that $3,700 surplus, otherwise it's an 11,000 and change deficit.
Yeah.
And then going forward, without an increase from regional district funding, we're looking at drawing down that term by $35,000 to $70,000 per year. And we exhausted very early in 2031. With the increase, we're still looking at the $15,000 drawdown this year because of course the increase won't take effect for several months yet. But yeah, if we can increase our core funding, then that drawdown, we don't even have to start drawing down, even if we don't have good years or unexpected windfalls or whatever. We don't even start making that drawdown until 2028. And it's a much smaller drawdown for several years. So we extend the life of our operating reserve quite considerably. I haven't projected how far it would last because things get murky once you get more than a few years out, but.
And this has always been a murky issue for not just this service, but the library and others where we don't collect taxes. We enter requisition, the province collects taxes, sits on it for a month or more, depending. People pay their property tax and then give us some money later. So yeah, that is nice, but
If it helps, I always pay mine on time.
so the difference though, you're talking, yeah, maybe 150,000 to spread over whatever happens in whatever scenario. The other question to staff is right now our rate per thousand is 0.034. Do we have room in that right now? What's our maximum rate per thousand for the service that Job's sector? Sure.
Yeah, through the chair, Director Jackman, based upon last year's assessment for that area, your maximum that you could have taxed was $434,000.
So there's
So the
lots
max, the rate is 0.14. Sorry, that was
Yep, it's 0.034 now, so it's almost the rate.
yeah. So that's yeah.
Okay, but it is a request for
What is it?
26. We have lots of room within our taxing authority, but this is a 20% request for a boost, and it won't be the only one this year. So just trying to get that perspective. We're not hampered by our ability to tax, it's a burden on the taxpayer. It's gonna be the conversation in January and February. So thanks.
Director Vandenberg?
Yes, thank you. Just for clarity, you, through Director Jackman's questions, your reserves are sitting at 285. And you're gonna be contributing 3,800.
Yeah, we don't actually transfer the surplus into the reserve fund. We just kind of roll it forward and start spending it in January. But yeah, essentially it means we're carrying at $3,800 into next year. If you look at our projections though, you can see sometimes we have, again, 2027, we're projecting a surplus of $956, and that's after we take out 35,000 from our term. So
Just a comment, love the notes section to your financial.
on our budget.
Yep, like that just, thank you.
You're welcome. We'll do that more often.
Can I clarify that? The 285 is an operating reserve. It's not a true reserve. It has to fund the first 6 months of this coming year before they get our grant.
Okay,
So
Yeah.
more than half of that money is already spoken for. The other half is what might be considered to be discretionary reserve.
Yeah.
The level of
Yes, the other half, so the 135 that's in one term is the operating funds for 2026. The 150 that's in the other term was accumulated through those first few years of COVID. There were phenomenal supports, emergency supports available for museums. And because we have pretty stable operating funding, and I kept getting these phone calls from people saying, hey, we want to give you $17,000, $25,000. And I'm like, we don't need it. They're going, too bad, take it anyways. So it was glorious. It was wonderful. But it's what has helped us weather some of these challenges that we've been encountering with especially our summer student funding. You know, we were able to hire a second person this year, even though we didn't get our usual external funding. But as we've noted in here, at the rate we're going, that's only 5-year cushion that we've got. After that, we're in serious trouble, and we aren't, with the staffing that we've got, we simply cannot build those earned revenues because our staff is already maxed out. And the earned revenues that we're getting now kind of represent the maximum we can do with the staffing that we have at this time.
So in looking at your projections again, I think it would be fair to say that you are determined to do that half-time FTE, whether you're funded or not. But this
we
will
need
only
to-
work for a while, because if you go to 2030 or 31, all of a sudden floor collapses on you unless there's.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're more than justified in wanting to do that by the information you've presented us, so I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Other than kind of make a recommendation that we move this to January for final decision.
Yeah.
Gives us a
Yeah,
chance
make a decision
to,
here today anyway.
yeah, it gives us a chance to really dig into this.
Yeah.
And if you have any other questions between now and then, give me a shout. More than happy to answer those.
Thank you so much. Again, we appreciate what you brought us here, and we know the position you're in.
We love what we
Through the
do.
ch-
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I just want to know if you want me to include the projections of the museum that Tammy has provided today into the draft budget, so that then when you get your roll-ups and those kinds of things from it's calculated in there, or else this will just be still sitting with what was in the 2025 approved financial plan. So it's just a matter of preference, but entering in the funds would give you that illustration. And for example, Director Vandenberg, that would then tell you on your breakout sheet, maybe give you a better sense of, if you approve that amount, how much that is overall impact on the taxation. But I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Right now in the 2026 financial plan is what was approved in the 2025 financial plan for requisition.
That's why I asked what our limit is, because if we knew the limit was only, say, 6% lift, I'd say show the max, but that's not an issue here. I'm reluctant to start showing all of the asks right now in the draft, like especially in the order of 26%. I mean, we could show something more nominal, but then that's sort of prejudging the conversation. A little bit at a loss. I'm reluctant to start showing every ask at its max, because those will pile up to decent big numbers pretty quick. I don't want to look at as if we're being heroic and rolling back the budget in our conversation, literally here in front of the community, 300 people, or we're going to cut it back by 15% after we increased it by 30. I don't want to be in that position. I'd rather start with real numbers rather than putting really big numbers in.
I would agree.
When I say real numbers, already projected budgeted numbers at this point, until we start, at least see the first roll up in January.
Got that, Joe?
Yeah, and that's fine. Through the chair, I just wanted to make sure there was no misconception between the presentation and what will be in the draft, like in that roll up of those draft budgets.
Okay. We got it then. We'll move then. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll now have the library. Yeah, we see you there, Sarah. Happy that you're online with us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I think we're going to start our presentation today. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what's been happening at the library. We've been at a few of these meetings this year. So probably the last update you got from me was in the summer. So I'll share a little bit of that. And then Kathy Durnan, our board chair, who you've now met, she'll be going over the budget with you in greater detail. But I just wanted to share a little bit about what's been happening at the library. As you know, the library is a valued community service. We're actually older than the town of Creston, if you can believe that. 105 years old this September. And we've existed in 14 different locations. So I think that it's pretty clear that it's a valued community service. And in Creston and the Valley, our service extends all the way up to Ryandale, all the way towards Yak. And we do see a great many patrons from your service areas, either by phone, online, or they make special trips into Creston just to visit us. So just know that in your service areas, we are serving your constituents. If you want some numbers here, so with our Friday closures, we've had a 15% reduction in our service hours. Up until the end of October, that's about 224 less hours of service for the community. Despite that, we've only seen an 8% reduction in in-person visits. So we are serving more people on the days that we are open than we normally would because we are still, people still want to use the library. But that is a 7% difference, which means 7% of people over last year that are maybe not visiting us because maybe Fridays was their visiting day. We also have had a 60% increase in our public meeting room usage. So that's a service that is still open on Fridays. People can access through a backdoor key. It's a service that we're able to provide after hours. And there's been a 60% increase. So there's a real desire in our community for a free meeting space. It's one of the only free meeting spaces in our community outside of churches. So there's a big demand on that, and much of our staff time is used managing the bookings of those rooms and making sure that people have access to them. We've also had a 5% increase over last year in our electronic resources. That's ebooks and online databases, things like we introduced Gale courses this year, which is courses that you can access online with certification for free with your library membership. And our tech help sessions have also increased by 22% over last year, which is one-on-one help with our IT coordinator. A lot of people come to the library for help with their devices, particularly with our older demographic here in Creston. I've told my staff that with less hours, they really need to be mindful of their capacity, but we have really passionate programmers at the library. So despite our reduction in hours in adult programs, we've actually had 11% more programs with the 15% reduction. And our children's programs have also been 8% more with increased attendance in both areas over last year. So I think that ties in with our meeting room usage, where people really have a strong desire to connect with community and connect with each other. And the library is a unique space for that. I also wanted to share just a few comments from our patrons that further sort of illustrate the importance of the library to the community. One patron says, "We love the library. We use it weekly for DVDs, books, and puzzles. We all love the annual book sales and movies. Oh, and the great selection of audiobooks. Please open on Fridays again." Another patron says, I used to not like books and my reading level was low. But from seeing how friendly the staff were, I started reading again, and now I'm a reading addict. And that was from a kid named Emmy Lou. Another patron says, I was a single mama and then single nana. I brought all my children and grandchildren to the library for so many different programs and to check out books we could never afford on our own. Thank you. That's from Lynn. And Christine says, I love that libraries are spaces to go without cost. Knowledge should be free. And finally, I share from another patron. Thanks for supporting me and my family. Being in a new country might be hard, but these walls are the best friend we needed. So the library really is a unique space that our community really appreciates and uses. And I'll just pass it off to Kathy to talk a little bit more about our budget.
Thank you, Sarah. So just to, as you all know, I'm new at doing this, so please bear with me. I am growing in my role as chair of the board. Sarah has done all the heavy lifting for a long time, and I want to share that with her and get to know you better and get to know this process better. So I also promise I will learn how to do pie charts. That will be coming soon. Just, I'm not quite ready for that yet.
You can get tech support at the library.
Yeah, apparently, yeah, really. So what we've done here in our budget presentation, in that this is basically a one-pager, we presented two different versions of the budget, the 2026 budget, draft budget. I guess to show the difference, it shows the difference between what it would cost to be open on Fridays, and then the second, the column on the right is with Friday closures, which is our situation right now. Now, I just wanted to run through some of the items further down the list, just to clarify. On the provincial funding, you can see that there was still a little bit left from, I think, the sort of COVID boost funds in 2025, but those are gone now, and the province is basically going to go back to their previous funding, which I know you know has been frozen for many, many years now. The donations line, most of those donations come from Friends of the Library fundraising. On the printing, the library generated revenue, just to say that the printing covers what the library pays for the service. So what we take in for printing, is that right, Sarah? It more or less covers that. So that's what that revenue.
It's about equal. So everyone that comes to print at the library, they get their first 5 pages for free, because a lot of people just have quick jobs, and most government forms are not available anywhere else in print. And so we try to make sure that the first 5 pages are free. Any color printing, anything additionally after that, we charge. And what we end up charging ends up covering the lease for the copier that we have and the printer toner and maintenance that we pay for.
Thank you. Now, the other grants and revenues, you'll see the number is larger there at 64,900, and that has to do mainly with our application for a Columbia Basin Trust grant for accessibility upgrades to the building, and I'll come back to that later. And then we have transfer from reserve, and basically, I guess you can see we have our reserves are about 156,000, apart from the money that you gave us for our budget for this year, and meaning that would use up about 1/3 of those reserves. But this is, the number is here so that the top line there from RDCK basically matches what you were planning for funding for next year. To go into a couple of items that are increased in our budget, the $3,000 on advertising and promotion, I asked Sarah to include because the board is planning on launching a fundraising campaign in 2026. And so that is for some fundraising for printing and events. We just have some seed money for that. Let's see, under the digital collections, there's a note that the digital collections tend to increase by 7 to 12% each year. So those, certain parts of the services, the increases are not at just the sort of level of the normal index increases. They're sort of jumping up a little bit more than that. On the finance expenses, the main increase is that we have hired a new bookkeeper. Our former bookkeeper retired, and we have to pay a market rate for a bookkeeper, which is basically twice as much as the retired bookkeeper. I guess was almost doing us a favor, keeping her rates low, but we have to pay market rates for that. And then let's see, further down here, under telephone and utilities, there's a fairly large increase for the cost of electricity from Fortis. It's about a 20% increase there. So that's a bit of a jump on the telephone and utilities. And under wages and benefits, under the collective bargaining agreement, there's a 4% increase for 2026 to ensure that our staff have a living wage. So those are some of the explanations of the increases that we see over 2025. So as I said, I'm assuming that the budget that you're interested in is the one that matches what you were planning on giving us. And there's the difference between that and the Friday opening budget is about $75,000. 61,000 of that is for wages and benefits. And I just note in my mind that the advocacy with the province has been to double the funding for libraries. If they did that, that would be covered, So it's almost too obvious that is absolutely needed. As I said, we are going to, we're going to run a fundraising campaign, go to the community. I know that you do it through taxation, but I think there's a lot of goodwill in the community for the library, and we're hoping that we can have a major sort of boost through fundraising and help get back open on Fridays. On the other grants and revenues, right, this Columbia Basin Trust Accessibility Grant, we submitted a grant application. This is to increase accessibility to the building there at the front door, the meeting room door, and the back door to the garden, to have them open for any kind of patron to be able to enter, and to put a ramp from the building to the garden so that they can also enjoy the beautiful garden at the back of the library. And there's a couple of other items. There are changes to shelving so that people, especially, I think it's for the large print books, so that people can access them without, unfortunately, if you need a large print book, it's hard to bend down. So with those sort of things, and some furniture that people will have an easier time of standing up from, getting into and standing up from. So what I was going to mention, and I didn't put this in a presentation for you, I would be happy to come back if you need to have this in writing. I just think, that grant money, 37,775 of it is going to be for capital improvements to the building. And I suppose what I would like to request or suggest is that perhaps that's money that you could match from capital. Money that would go for capital expenditure, and that we could then have that in our operating budget. So, like I say, I'm just doing that sort of informally now. I don't have it in writing for you, and I think with that, we're ready for questions.
Sarah, go ahead before we go for questions. I know you had a comment there.
Yeah, I just wanted to share about the accessibility grant a little bit. So what Kathy was talking about is that a portion of the grant that we've applied to the Columbia Basin Trust is for improving the doors on the building, which is part of the envelope and needs RDCK approval and also adds sort of capital improvements to the building. Right now, our garden door and our meeting room door are not as accessible as they could be as far as the upgrades that we're looking at. The garden door doesn't have automatic door opening at all. And then the other piece is the ramp to the garden. Right now, there's only stairs, and anyone that wants to access the garden accessibly has to go around the building and has to tell staff. And those are significant barriers that we know from an accessibility perspective. It's something that people have requested for a while and has been flagged for a while. And this grant came up, and it's a great opportunity for that.
Thanks. Director Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. And through the chair, actually, to Craig first, because my questions are really more around sort of the numbers that we have in reserve right now, the amount that we've contributed to reserve since we paid the loan off. And we see that we had room in the budget. We had bought the building through internal borrowing. It's a fairly heavy hit for 5 years. And we had to fix the drainage in the parking lot. It's a fairly heavy hit. But since then, we've been saying, well, part of the money that we had within the funding envelope, plus we have also lifted the requisition a number of times over recent years. Last year, I gave you guys a complete breakdown of those percentages. It was some big lifts. But we've also been able to put money to reserve. Last year, part of our solution, interim solution, was that we actually increased what we would have normally contributed to reserve. We were targeting 80,000, 70,000 average. We dropped back to 30,000 contribution reserve for 2025, allowing more money to be available within. But we still had big lift taxation, but we took money away from sort of the long-term care of the building to allow that to go towards the granting money, which had a huge lift from 2024 to 2025. So first I want to comment that it's great to hear that contributions from others like Columbia Basin Trust is reducing future care and maintenance of the building, like replacement doors. That'll reflect in the capital asset management plan once that's done. But I think it'd be inappropriate to say because you got money from somewhere else to add this to the building lifespan, to also give you that same money through this. It's the wrong way to do it. The right way to do it is we have a capital asset management plan. We acknowledge what's in reserve now. We look at our, I don't know, this would have a 50-year projection for this style of building, probably. Reasonable extended lifespan, another 50 years. And then we adjust our contribution to reserve, which is flagged for 2026 to be 70,000. And we'll say we only need 40,000 in that contribution to reserve. Then there'd be some room within the current funding envelope, along with any projected cost increases we've already told the ratepayers they should expect 5 years. There would be room for adjusting how we disperse that money, either from the main library or the 3 reading centers, which have been not quite red circled for a while themselves. So again, I can't comment much about, is there room in the budget to do something to help the hours of operation at the main library without understanding what are our projected contributions to the asset management plan. I realize we have a lot of buildings in the regional district and a lot of them fall under the same block of responsibility. Are we very close to understanding what the asset contribution to reserve should be for that asset?
Yeah, through the chair, the answer to Director Jackson's question is we're closer. We're not close. I think and we haven't presented a draft budget yet to this committee with regards to S193, but and certainly the opportunity that the library through the CBT presents, Joe and I have received that and trying to figure out where that fits in the plan. And I think that if we look at the building condition assessment that was done 5 years ago, we know that data, and we've said this for this facility and others, that data is, it's not unreliable, it's just not consistent as far as building a concise plan for that particular facility. What we are recommending as we did with the rec centers, the rec complexes, is that we invest in deeper facility condition assessment for the library. So it'll be a smaller scale, same scope for the library to get us a 20 and 25-year plan. I think specifically for 2026, though, we do recognize that we have to spend money engineering for replacement of the HVAC system. So we've drafted 50,000 for engineering for that and 150,000 for 2027 to do that work. So that's just a high level look at that. But as far as reserves right now in that service, I think it's pushing 550,000 currently, plus the 30,000 from this year. We will have a 5-year capital plan for S193, certainly at the January meeting, that will include either capital placeholders for the next 5 years or contributions to reserves, so that we can, leverage the requisitions. But the answer to your question is we're still building that plan. The work that the library is recommending will be informed and probably be part of that plan, because we do recognize accessibility as a current gap there, and we'll leverage that funding if we think that that's beneficial.
So we'll see something in January with a more realistic contribution projection and go from there. So great.
Dr. Vandenberg.
Thank you through the chair. Thank you, Kathy. So just to back up on this piece, that we're talking about, the conversation in January on the reserve is to do with the doors, walkways, and access to the garden. Is that what came out with what Kathy was talking about?
Answer long term.
And long term. Okay, HVAC, that kind of thing. I just wanted to be clear. And then question to Kathy. On line item number, and I was making notes as you were talking, I apologize, 26 furniture equipment from 1,000 to 64,000. What was, I think you touched on that. What was that earmarked for?
That is the accessibility,
Okay.
shelving, furniture, accessible furniture.
Okay, that's what I had thought there. You do a head count. Do you have a way of monitoring tallying people coming into the library? How do you know how many people are coming in and out?
I think that Sarah has a secret system, yeah?
It's not secret. A lot of buildings have these. We have a door counter.
It's a counter?
Yep.
And then I think the final one is, I don't see any year-to-dates. I don't see any financials. I'm hoping that the verbal report is written because it's covering things that are relative to the budget. And I don't believe that I've noted it all down. And so I think that we're going to have a conversation about this in January. There's more information that needs to come our way, so that we can digest this. And of course, staff has a component that we need to talk about as well. I don't know that I have. Oh, I do. One more question. What is your relationship to the school libraries? Because I don't know. Is that completely independent? School District 8, that's their animal, and the municipal libraries is a separate dealio altogether?
We'll let Sarah, is that something you could answer, Sarah? I'm not, because that's operational, I'm not completely.
No, I can answer that. That's okay. School districts are definitely separate from public libraries. They're governed by different legislation and receive different funding. Libraries in schools, their budgets were severely cut back probably around the same time that public libraries were. So almost all teacher librarian positions were eliminated in the early 2000s. And now they often have staff who are doing multiple jobs at once running those libraries. We do have partnerships with schools, obviously through our children's librarian. So we have class visits, for instance, Wildflower School, which is in the high school, and they don't have access to an age-appropriate library. They come and visit our public libraries. So there are informal partnerships at the community level. But as far as anything formal, we are different legislation, different funding entirely.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Well, Director Van Hook is begging you for a pie chart. per se.
Yeah.
Pie chart, yeah, okay, that's for Christmas, all right.
Thank you very much. I think we're taking about a 5 minutes before we get into open business.
We have another delegation, of course, which we put off.
I'm not here.
Not here.
Because
Still not on the soccer football club.
Yeah, Ben, do you want to talk about soccer?
Is
I'm British or what?
We need like someone to email or text or let somebody know their windows Whatever,
we can be quick here, yeah.
Dr. Dunn, that's part of, it goes out into the community.
Of course.
yeah, that's hard to do.
We will reconvene, we'll call back to order.
Oh,
And
Mike's
so-
here now.
With that,
We're waiting for Mike.
Mike's here. So we'll start with the old business now, Gold River Water Sustainability Planning.
So Denise, Jessica,
Turns down. And we'll add that late item to it, so I think Paris, we probably want to hear from you.
Hi, thank you through the chair. We have two items for the Goat River watershed. One is an update just based on recent engagement, and Camille has some slides to share. And then also we have the report that was added this morning requesting direction to apply for the Real Estate Foundation funding. If it's okay with the chair, we'd like to start with the update on recent engagement.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Camille, if you can share the slides, and over to you.
Wonderful. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Great. Great. Thank you. As Paris said, I'm Camille LeBlanc, Community Resilience Coordinator with the Community Sustainability Team, and I'm going to be sharing an update on engagement and what we've accomplished so far, what we're learning from the results, and what engagement is coming up next. So for phase 1 and 2 of our engagement, this included the launch of the Water Values Survey, followed by in-person engagement through open houses and the release of our kitchen table conversation guides. I'll speak to the results of the survey and the open houses, but for context, the kitchen table process is resident-led. We provide residents with resources to host their own conversations about water in the Goat River watershed, along with instructions for sharing their feedback back to us. So we're going to return back to this visual timeline shortly to show the next steps and the other phases. Oops. Apologies. So starting with the Water Values Survey, we launched the survey in August and shared it through community organizations, their newsletters, their social media, as well as our own Facebook ad and a print and online coverage ad in the Creston Valley Advance. And also for those who aren't as online, paper copies were available at the Creston office. So we promoted the survey also at community events in person, like the market, the Saturday market, and the fall fair, where about 100 people visited our booth and many filled out our survey on the spot. And so far, we've received 206 responses, with the survey still open and ongoing for participation. So it is an open-ended survey. Most responses we found have come from the Creston area. You can see a breakdown of our responses there at the bottom. So what we're hearing is residents are reporting that they are noticing changes in creeks, in wells, and seasonal water patterns. And many want to see stronger protection of water in the Goat River watershed. Full results will be shared in a What We Heard report in spring 2026. So this is just a snapshot. For our open houses, we notified the community through posters, print ads, social media, and outreach at the Creston Market. And we received a lot of help from community champions who shared the events and the posters and other materials within their networks. We hosted 6 open houses where 137 residents attended in total. The events themselves were designed to connect with residents, share foundational information on water sustainability, and share what sustainability could mean together and start to shape that vision together. The sessions began with drop-in time to explore a good amount of informational displays. As well, we included a virtual 3D watershed map. It was also followed, this open drop-in session was followed by a short presentation where discussion and feedback and questions were built into the presentation itself. During our discussion, residents raised concerns about land use impacts, logging came up, water intensive practices, rising water costs, and the need for more community involvement Residents did express that they wish that more people were at the meetings. And many expressed a desire, to see more of their neighbors taking part in the future. And a big thank you to everyone who attended and participated. Government representatives have played an important role in our engagement. At the open houses, we had participation from Improvement District trustees and chairs, RDCK board members, and also Yakinuki staff. 5 improvement districts, Rykert, North Canyon, South Canyon, Wendell, and Kitchener were represented, offering very valuable perspectives from their water systems. And staff are now following up with trustees to develop discussions on priorities, with meetings being planned for this month and into the new year. As well, 3 RDCK board members attended these sessions, including one who joined all 6. Thank you to those who participated and shared insights from your communities. A 1-pager will be circulated after this meeting for all board members to share with their residents that provides an overview of the project and also links to keep up to date and how to get involved. Yakinuki and RDCK staff, we continue to meet monthly with Isaac Decker, the Watershed Sustainability Coordinator, or rather Stewardship Coordinator, who also presented at the Creston Open House. Strengthening this relationship remains a priority, and more engagement work with Isaac is planned for 2026.
Chair, can I ask a question while we're on that slide?
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Jack.
If you could roll it back one, please. A couple points. I guess first, kudos to Director Vandenberg. He's the guy who did all 6 of these open houses, I believe.
Technically 5, but then I have representation on
Okay.
6.
It was a struggle. I only made 1. Times a day, days a week, but that was good. But in terms of overall government, I'm going to ask a little more about this when the sort of late item report comes up. And I do want to explain the late item report. We looked at it agenda prep yesterday. Thought, well, this will go to board and it'll be 5 minutes total to talk about it. Or board will go extremely long if we open the conversation up. So one, I wanted all of the directors and staff who've been more heavily involved in this on this end, in the sub-region, to have a little more time to contemplate this, because when we get our full board agenda, you don't necessarily have one item jump out at you. This is one, the phase 3-4 application jumped out at me. And part of why it jumped out at me is specifically under government to government. If you go back to the earlier report where we talked about engagement and relationships, the first point under the sort of the outline for what happened up to today would have been building a relationship with Yakinuki, leadership meetings between Yakinuki, the Superintendent Council, RDCK Chair, Creston Mayor, area ABC elected officials, to set collaboration principles and review engagement outcomes. We did not do that. Chair and myself did sit down with the Superintendent Council some time ago and had a very much more broad conversation, not just about this. That was quite some time ago. Shared time in the land, gatherings, walks, meals. Again, between that same group of government to government did not happen. And joint creation of communication materials. So staff has been doing that. So when I'm looking at a phase 3-4 and I see what we didn't do this year, which I think is still critical in order to get to where we will need to be if there's going to be significant partnered endeavors to protect all the watersheds, but particularly Lower Gold. We didn't do that. And I only had not a half an hour yesterday to review this new report to say, wow, are we going to do that, or are we just jumping past that? The other side, when I look at a bullet like this, there was monthly meetings with our staff and Yakinuki staff, but I thought the commitment was we would see regular briefing notes, so that even if we didn't get to be in the room and have the conversations with Chief and Council, we at least would have a better understanding of the assumptions or anticipated outcomes that are evolving as we've gone through this last year. So again, if we get anybody's had time to read that application for more funding for next phases, I want to see some of the stuff we didn't do included in this next phase. Or if they're still going to be done in January, February, I'd like to see that commitment. As we sit right now, I think the current remaining engagements, there's one outreach to farm or water user community in January. There may be one
January, yeah.
January engagement. But none of it includes us on the governance side right now. So that's all for now.
Okay. Continue, please.
Thank you. So speaking to the next engagement event that Director Jackman did allude to there, to kick it off in 2026, producers are invited to a lunch and learn, which is co-hosted with the Kootenay and Boundary Farm Advisors. It will focus on local water challenges and opportunities, and insights from that session will help inform the Goat River water sustainability planning process even further. So the event will include a short presentation, a moderated expert panel, and an open discussion with producers. And we're also providing lunch. The panel will feature representatives from the RDCK, Yakanuki, and the agricultural sector. Confirmed speakers are Paris Marshall-Smith, representing RDCK, discussing how producers can inform the next steps of the water sustainability planning process. Isaac Decker, representing Yakanuki, will share insights on changing water conditions in the goat watershed, and Andrew Bennett, representing the Environmental Farm Plan Program, will highlight opportunities to improve on-farm water use and strengthen conservation practices and access funding supports. So that will take place on January 8th. The times and the details are there, 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Creston Hotel. And there's lots of information on the event and a spot to register at kbfa.ca/events. And so we encourage everyone to come and to share this event with producers in your networks and really just help spread the word. An invitation with links and some copy will be circulated to the board after this meeting to share within your networks.
Dr. Vandenberg, you have a question? Right.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, Camille, you finished your presentation. I just wanted to get into you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is our last slide. So looking ahead, we're wrapping up the open house engagement and preparing a newsletter to keep residents updated and informed on upcoming opportunities like the January 8th event. There's also on the January 8th, there's going to be an unveiling of a 3D model of the Goat River watershed, which is a large hand-painted 3D printed map created by an artist in Powell River, featuring place names in both Tanaha and English. And this has been a collaborative effort between Yakanuki and RDCK and will support future engagement. So with that, I'm just going to pass it on to Paris for our last 3 items there, our on-farm visits and the bullets within phase 3.
Thank you very much, Camille. And again, thank you very much for this time to present this update. Just to speak to Director Jackman's points, there were 2 attachments that accompanied the report today requesting funding. Attachment B, or the second attachment, does provide an update on all engagement to date in more detail, and specifically speaks to the council to council or government to government gatherings that were proposed with Yakanuki. And so we weren't able to do anything in the fall in terms of a gathering, but we have received confirmation just today from Council, Yakanuki Council, who met yesterday and did confirm that they are interested in working and hosting or being involved in a council to council meeting in the spring. And roughly what we're proposing is a 2-part engagement, which is consistent with what we proposed in the initial engagement strategy, is on the land time, potentially in May, and then also doing an in-person discussion gathering, which would be facilitated. And we have commitments from Fraser Basin Council to support that facilitation. And so, yeah, we feel optimistic about it. At this stage, while it wasn't done in the fall, we do anticipate that there is interest from Yakanuki to do this work with our DCK elected officials in the spring. And then just to speak to the briefing notes, my understanding was that the briefing notes were only to be supplied if there was leadership involved and not if it was staff to staff involvement. And so we have just been working at the direction of the board to work on staff to staff. And it's only been to support the ongoing work. And so making sure that our communication is all in line, and all of the communication has been consistent with what we prepared with that initial strategy. So the other updates that Camille was speaking about is that we did also we were successful in our funding application to Investment Agriculture Foundation. So we've received $100,000 to engage with producers, and that's part of our phase 3 engagement. We launched it on January 8th with the Lunch and Learn in partnership with KBFA. And then also it's a 3-part process of doing on-farm visits, doing a mail out, and then also doing in-person gatherings. And so we hope that those on-farm visits will be able to roll out between January and March of 2026. And then, yes, the Seed to Seed gathering will also be proposed for May and June of next year, but otherwise we will be relatively quiet through the months of January, February, and March, as I will be on leave on sabbatical, and Camille will be holding down the fort of maintaining open involvement and then responding to the kitchen table discussions and preparing a What We Heard report back to the board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Director Vandenberg, and then after that, Chair Watson, you have your hand raised as well. Go ahead, Director Vandenberg.
Thank you, and I do agree with the points that Director Jackman raised. And my understanding is briefing notes, the purpose of briefing notes was the communication requirements between staff and staff. So, and I could be wrong, but I don't believe that's my recollection. My question though are around the scope, engagement scope. I'm not sure when the improvement districts conversation was had. I was unaware of that. I know that the phase 3 talks about farm and food producers starting off, but where does the commercial and community groups fit in, like the golf course, for example? There's been, as you know, I've sent in an email saying that there's a number of community groups that are interested in understanding where they fit into all this. And I'm not quite sure when that is. Perhaps that's the phase 4 scoping. I'm not sure. So I'll just leave that question. 2 questions. When was the improvement district conversations, and when will the commercial and community groups engagement happen?
Thank you. Through the chair. Yes. So the first point in terms of in response to commercial and community groups, that is part of the proposed engagement through the Real Estate Foundation. And so, yes, that would be included in the ongoing engagement and through the scoping study. The community groups are always welcome to engage with us. And so that's an open invitation, as are commercial producers. But in terms of targeted engagement, that would be something that we would be pursuing in the spring, summer, fall of this year as we continue our engagement. And then also speaking to irrigation districts. So we had informal conversations with 5 of the 6 irrigation districts, or improvement districts and irrigation districts through the open houses. And we'll be following up with additional conversations at their interest in the next couple weeks.
Thank you. Chair Watson, go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate this update. I did want to ask how feasible would it be when we're doing things like the January 8th Lunch and Learn, and then also the C2C, on the ones that I wouldn't necessarily expect you to check our calendars with us, like the broader community ones. Can you just send us meeting invites that end up in our calendar? Because it's way easier to track than looking it up on KBFA or trying to remember where these might be noted. And then when it comes to the C2C one, which would be government to government, could you actually work with us on ensuring we're available on those days, just noting our schedules? I really appreciate that. That one would be critical for myself to attend. And then the rest I've just kind of considered to my colleagues to be more community focused, and I rely on the notes for that. So I would also agree that it was a bit confusing in terms of what notes we wanted. But I do recall for our ability to kind of stay informed and up to date on things, it was the overall notes so that we can track kind of where things are at. And it's a lot of information. So I can understand why it may have just been with leadership. The note on the leadership was generally staff and leadership shouldn't meet. It should be leadership and staff to staff. So we wouldn't need notes on the leadership stuff because we would be there ideally. I hope that makes sense and appreciate the work. This will be really interesting. Our first watershed sustainability plan in the RDCK. Good work.
And maybe I should just, thank you through the chair, just qualify that we haven't actually gotten any formal response from the province on doing a water sustainability plan. So that's still a decision that's being made by the province of whether or not they want to pursue this with us. But we have, there is the commitment to do water sustainability planning. So yes, just that distinction. And yes, we'll definitely send along the invitation to the you for the January and everyone for the January 8th event, and we'll be definitely working with all the electeds to make sure that the C2C works with our calendar and availability. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, thanks. So then the follow-up, and maybe I will jump a little bit into the late reports or the information on the next phase 3 for our application. Yes, I see in the one report, it's where I'm pulling information about, governance conversations. And I had not envisioned that would be a late in the day or year down the road process. I envisioned that as being an earlier phase 1, 2, something a little sooner. I guess at this point in time, we will get what we get in that terms, but also because of the potential for maybe a bit of a disconnect as to us tracking on the governance side, what expectations being set. Then I'm going to reiterate, my expectation was that the briefing notes would be staff to staff contact. So we had a sense of the ongoing conversation that we're not able to see. It's behind a closed door. The conversations are with us here. The whole community can see it here. Conversations are staff to staff. There's a potential lack of transparency. So that was the whole point of briefing note question. If it's a meeting I'm at, I don't need a briefing note. I was there. So I would still like to see an assemblage of briefing notes because I know you guys, staff, every time you're sitting down, you're taking notes. Every time we talk about a facility or programming or something, Greg's taking notes, Trish is taking notes. I'd still like to see briefing notes of the key staff to staff engagements through the past several months as to how did we evolve to this decision or that decision, to even if it's just to create a 3D map or to do this or do that. I feel that we're in a little bit of a vacuum. I hope Chief of Council, the Superintendent Council are in a better position. Maybe that'd be something to ask Akanuki staff. How frequently are they giving their council briefing notes on when they're talking to the RDCK, and emulate that if possible. And then in terms of funding, yeah, when I looked at this proposal, and again, we have minutes before agenda prep to review some of this stuff. It's not so bad. I get that the night before, but the board agenda, like, wow, it's 1,000 pages or 600 pages or whatever of stuff all at once. So I was curious when I looked at the funding breakdown, are we in there in terms of the governance side and communication? But as I understand now, you have Fraser Basin Council funding secured for C2C. Are you also relying on an FCM grant for that? And sort of what order of magnitude is that funding?
Just to the question of, thank you through the chair, to the question of, so Fraser Basin Council isn't providing funding, they're providing staff time, and they've also provided their full organizational support, to quote one of their staff members, for this work that's being done. They're very excited by this work. The person that we're working with is a person named Teresa Fresco, and she's also been facilitating the forest land use planning. And so there's a good relationship already in place with Yakanuki. And so the funding is specific to FCM funding, and that would be used in part for the facilitation time. It would also be used for catering. It'd also be used for protocol and ceremony as well. So and it's $20,000, which is the C2C funding. And just to, then also, if I can respond to the briefing notes, I'm very happy to provide briefing notes. We don't have any sense of how Yakanuki is working internally in terms of their updates, and that information isn't available to us. But we know that there's good information and good support for this work, and also confidence in the work that's being done at a community level. But yeah, very happy to provide the meeting notes that we've from our conversations.
That would be great. And yes, I also have confidence in the overall process. I'm just would like to see a little more detail. So thank you.
Director Tierney.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Camille and Paris. Good presentation. I'm interested in how you're getting the word out to the farmers to attend the lunch and learn. Really important to get as many farmers out as possible, particularly the cherry growers. The bottom of that page, I see please help share this event with farmers and food producers across the Creston Valley. How are you getting the farmers out here? How are you engaging with them to get as many out as possible? Especially the cherry producers.
Yes, thank you through the chair. So we're working with a variety of mechanisms, and just to note that the January 8th is one event that we'll be hosting. So it's not, there'll be many opportunities to engage with producers. As mentioned, we have this large pot of funding, and our goal is to try a variety of ways of engaging with producers. So for the January 8th, we're using all forms of media, and then also the channels of through the Ministry of Agriculture. So Jeff Nimmo is sent it out. I noticed that it went out, the bulletin went out this morning, and it was included there. Also through the growers organization. So in terms of orchardists, they're receiving the information there. KBFA is also sending it out both informally and formally through their networks as well. And then we're also sending, Camille's just created a distribution list, both of people that have signed up and to the Engage page, and then also the contacts that we've established recently. And so, yes, we hope for very good attendance at that January 8th event. And then in terms of just speaking specifically to the orchardists, we recognize that there's a certain population that may attend and participate the events that we're hosting, but also we're wanting to engage with folks on the farm. And so we're going to be doing on-farm visits and also we're going to the market stands and connecting with folks there as well. But welcome any suggestions if there's other ways of connecting with folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Tierney.
Just to follow up to that, Paris, when you get to that point of engaging with farmers directly, could you put out a request to myself to and perhaps the other director as far as maybe a list of producers that perhaps are difficult to engage with, just to ensure that these certain producers, orchardists are on that list. We need to make sure that as many are there as possible.
Thank you through the chair, and thank you for that support and assistance. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, so in the interest of moving this meeting along, the additional item that was included in this, it's basically for our information, but it goes to board next week, and that's my assumption. That's correct, isn't
it? We could double check with Board Chair Watson. There could be a recommendation from this committee, as I understand it, to board to support staff in making this application. And if we thought we had to tweak it anyway, it's pretty hard to do with short notice. But that may be the most appropriate. I see Chair Watson's hand up now. Whether or not it's appropriate to make a recommendation from this committee or not, maybe she'd have better.
Point of order through the chair. I don't know what this document is that's been referred to a number of times. It's not in my agenda. Is it under 9.1?
It's the late item.
It's a supplemental by email.
By email?
Yes.
Yeah, that is why it's pointed out as a late item to the agenda. Maybe we just don't have time to talk about it. I mean, I've been standing it last night, a little bit this morning. I didn't see the 20K now, which has been obviously FCU funded. Sure.
Go ahead, Chair Watson.
Yeah, thanks. This is on the board agenda and we just reviewed that yesterday. And so when reviewing it, I had thought that the CVSC, given that's where this conversation has been and this project is mostly housed, I had suggested, and Director Jackman agreed, that since it was already on your agenda, it's a standing item, that you receive it for your information. Ideally, and I think through to staff, because this committee is the one leading the project in terms of that deep conversation, these items should start at CVSC and through there they end up at the board. I was just trying to find more space so that if you wanted to have that deep conversation on this, that you could do that at CVSC. It's on the board agenda regardless, and given it was a late item, it shouldn't actually be received by email. It should be on an open agenda. And there was just not a lot of time for that. Robin had already left for the day. I knew that by the time we had decided that because we had a late meeting yesterday. So not the ideal process, but moving forward, it's best if the GOAT watershed items start at CVSC and then go to board through there so you guys can talk about it in depth. Not that you can't do that at board, but I'm always moving you guys along a little quicker than Director DeBoon. So that was the intention. If you don't have time today, it's fine. It's on the board agenda.
Yeah, I had assumed when I saw it, it was to inform us what was coming up on the board. So the recommendation will be made at board or to support that board. Just by seeing the initial recommendation right at the very start, I kind of suggest what we'll be doing with that. And so I appreciate that it was here for information. And again, in the interest of moving this meeting along, I would like to move this meeting along. So we are again rearranging our agenda because George Longpre is now online for the Creston Valley Soccer Club, I guess it is. So George, we'll take your delegation now, and thank you for joining us. So go ahead. I think you're muted, George. If we can't hear you, George, I'm not sure if you can unmute or if.
Thumbs up if you can hear us.
Can you hear us, George? Okay. We can't hear you.
Just turn this volume up. It's unmuted.
He apologizes.
You could phone the number.
Or we can move along.
I think maybe we'll address the next agenda item and hopefully in that time we can deal with the tech issues there, George. We do have a limited time here. So we'll go with the discussion item on Creston District Community Complex.
Yes, thank you. And so back when we started talking about the presentation on the budget, that sort of thing, the invitation was given by staff that if there's any thoughts or ideas that they ought to be familiar with or entertain, they would like to hear from us as directors. So I have put some thought to a couple of things that I have, as you see here today in the attachment. One is, and I've shared with the thought or the idea of our solar panels to have a screen available in our complex that talks about upcoming programs, that shows the results of our solar panels. It's a rotational type of a screen in our facility. Some revenue opportunities with companies that could advertise on the screen, generating a revenue to offset the cost of that type of technology and provide a revenue stream. Further, I did provide some, and there are lots of recreation centers out there today that have these type of information screens that produce this type of rolling information slash revenue advertising, that sort of thing. And so as a group today, I would like to explore that opportunity to see if there's something that we could advise staff to do. The other item that's on that list is with our expenditures and capital costs around the pickleball court. Of the facilities that we have here, the pickleball court is free. Does it make sense to ensure that you're a member of this facility before the use of a pickleball court? I know that in some areas that is the case. You have to subscribe, you have to be a member in order to be able to use those facilities. That then is a revenue that then helps to offset expenses. Don't know how practical that is. I do know how it works in other places, so I know it's done. But that's an idea as well. And then the third thing was we have staff dedicated to fitness and consultation, that type of thing. And I know in other facilities that's a third-party private that offers that for a fee. And then local taxpayers don't pay for that sort of thing. So as you can see in the agenda, 3 things that I would like to throw it onto the table and see if there's any merit, some interest, that sort of thing, to move forward with it, with any of these ideas. And I'll leave it at that.
Director Jack.
I kind of like the idea about some kind of a display thing that's digital. We had a lot of conversations some years ago, and it looked like a giant iPhone touchscreen type thing. I think it was done partly through the Chamber of Commerce or Economic Development. Frank Adito, computers might have been involved. Somebody had a model of the program thing. The other group that had a model for that was Bellport Business District, where it looks like a big iPhone, and you could just buy these things for $3,000. You program it, you can hit the icons on the side and brings up information. So by default, you have the rotating stuff. I like that idea. Programming this or that community events, and or maybe a flash of a 5-second ad, which I think Joe had responded. That kind of thing would take more of a conversation, but I like that idea. Membership requirements. The only thing I thought might work there is if we have time slots where you could reserve. So say a court, you can reserve only between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. or 5 and 9 p.m. and you reserve for a fee, $10 or something like that. Trouble there is if it's not enough money. It's like Tom Duell told us with bus fares, collecting money costs money, time to set that up, and then policing that to make sure somebody's supposed to get off the court at 5 o'clock does. It could be more work than it's worth, but I wouldn't want to say you have to be a club member, because then clubs can start to become sort of, I don't know, cliques potentially. I'd rather just be maybe access by reserved time, if that made sense to staff. Yeah, there'll be a response on that. And then, the other fitness facility, private. There were 2 private fitness entities in this town at one time, and neither of them survived. This place is just so much better. I don't know if it's time to revisit potential private model, but I think what happens now, and I understand some from my son who's up in Kamloops, if you have aquatic staff, which is the higher bar to reach for lifeguards, and you can't give them all the hours they want, then you give them fitness hours if they're our own staff at a lower level of training and complete familiarity, access to the building. So the fitness can be a buffer for attracting and retaining staff for aquatics, which is a challenge. So again, interesting idea, but once you go arm's length, that cuts that off from the flow of how staff work. So I just welcome staff. And if he wants to tell us if there's an opportunity, or if they really rely on being able to have flexible staff in the different positions. And aquatics and fitness are highly compatible. They have a certain fitness level to be able to certify stuff for people for lifeguarding. So yeah, interesting idea. But I know from my son in Kamloops, some of the conversations we've had, they might be making those staffing positions. But it's interesting, like, great to get the ideas.
Joe, go ahead.
So, I think there's some things that that are easy to investigate and some things that are much more difficult to investigate. We can, Craig, myself and Trish, we can definitely reach out with our sustainability group in the regional district to talk about the display for the solar panels. It was interesting because like there was a choice during that project of different ways of communicating with the public, and the choice was the more tactile Lego model method. But we can see if there's something that is practical for that, and at least bring back what that might take. When it comes to the sponsorship piece, I'll let Trish, I don't know if you don't mind, and I put you on the spot after about that, but that is work that we're doing in a more broad scope. When, of course, I'm looking actually right now, Director Vandenberg, and I've got the report from Recreation, 3 of them actually, from Recreation Excellence, when we built the building, and the reasons that we chose the methods that we did for driving, for how we've set up the building in Creston to operate. What I will do is I'll package that up. The material is from January of 2006. The only director that'll probably be familiar is Director Jackman. But the model of the way we're doing the operation is based upon that report. Evaluating what happens when we essentially turn a part of our building into a lease space for profit. That is a much more complicated type of an evaluation. It then breaks off the whole membership structure that we presently have for the building, so that there's a number of things that definitely would fall out from that. And I would suggest that's not something right now, not that we're not prepared to do it. That's a big question, and that would take quite a bit of work to filter out what those benefits or lack of benefits might be. So just know that that's a big question. The pickleball, the way that park was designed was not particularly for that type of use. We do have, there's one thing that's incorrect. We do have fees for pickleball. That is when you want to have exclusive use of the courts, or else it's first come, first serve. There are definitely different models. I know that I've been kind of a little bit dragged into a conversation about pickleball courts in Caslow, but it can go both. It can definitely be a problem both ways. But I think there may be some. How do we extend what the membership is for using the pool, the fitness center, the arena, public skating, group fitness classes? How can we extend that to the pickleball courts? It's a good and interesting question, because we often haven't thought of our outdoor spaces in that manner. So there probably is some piece to that. But on the sponsorship piece, that is something that we are actively working on. So if the committee still wants, Trish can just expand on what the work is that we're doing in that area.
Could bring it back to our next meeting.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that too. If you could prepare a bit of a report on answering these questions, because you
Just
stepped
through the
into it.
chair, I just need to be honest, we're not gonna have time to do that. We're in the middle of 57 budgets. So
Yeah.
next meeting is gonna be budgets.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but there's no real time limit on this. It's just follow up with your response to these suggestions. When you can do it, I think it would be convenient. Maybe on
I just-
that list.
Just want to wrap up this. All this is an attempt to think outside the box, to think about what could be and what makes sense. It's a good communication piece. It's very clear that our constituents, our taxpayers, are going to come to us again in budget season, and they've told us very loud and clear that they're very concerned with the amount of taxation dollars that have to be spent. And as soon as we can start putting our heads together to look at ways of generating and offsetting that, and that's what this is an attempt to do that. And the beauty of the screens, the digital screens rotating, it's an information, it's a communication piece. And you're seeing it all over. All you have to do is take a drive to someone else's community and walk into the rec centers and see what's going on there. So it's not reinventing a wheel. The wheels are already there. So.
Okay, we'll leave it at that for now and go on to discussion item for Fire Service Advisory Committee.
That was
9.3.
3. So that's the, I ran through the chair.
Yes.
I believe that are we having a meeting coming up here sometime soon in which this is a proposed motion that I had brought through this last month meeting. I will hand over the conch to Mr. Moore.
Sure. So your proposed motion was, is that the board sets up a fire service advisory that would have no legal context to the town of Creston that operates the fire service. The RDs by contract in their own. Anyhow, so to keep this very short and brief is that talking to our municipal lawyer the best, because we want to be able to structure this advisory committee so they have some governance and we can include, that would provide meaningful feedback to council for the operation of the service without having to relitigate. So if you have a meeting about the service that includes our electoral area partners, council's not relitigating that whole conversation at a council meeting. So there is an ability to do delegation of authority, very similar to how the RD is set up, commissions and committees. It's done through bylaw. Our lawyer is putting together the framework for that bylaw right now as we speak. And then what we've set up is to have a governance meeting to sort of structure those terms of reference with the elected officials in the first week of February. So that's where that's going. So essentially, we're going to set this up. It's going to be through the town of Creston, through the community charter. It'll have delegated authority through bylaw. And then, of course, that allows very clear direction and instruction and then sets the stage. So what does the advisory committee do and what is council, what is council's role if they're handing over like governance decisions to the advisory committee? So it's kind of think of it very similar as like the Arrow Creek Water Commission, for an example. Like it actually would have a bylaw and delegated this over.
I look forward to those conversations.
Director Jack.
Yeah, so I mean, my gut feeling was and still is that it could be also done as an advisory through the regional district. So, and I understand that a lawyer will give us some talking points on that. I don't want to presume that is the only path. I don't want to presume it will be, say, similar to a select committee of council. So I, no presumptions in my mind, but I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing the legal this way and that way, and I'll want RD's admin opinion on this as well.
Go ahead, buddy.
So you get, so the agree item, so we're not looking at the legal part of what the regional district can do. The regional district can set up every commission or whatever you want, delegate authority to a bylaw. Will have zero effect on the town of Creston Fire Department because that's council. So what we're trying to set up is so that the governance committee that is established, that would be by bylaw, naming say electoral area A as a member of that committee, legal authority to be or have delegated legal authority in that governance structure. So if you do it the other way around, you can make recommendations to council, but there would be no legal binding way to provide that governance. So you'd have a committee making recommendations. So we're trying to give it.
So the other way around would provide a more in-house regional district conversation for the contract negotiations, because that is the other avenue, to have some deeper contract negotiations. So I want to look at it from both sides. We want to look at this as an entity, regional district, looking for services through contract. Or we'll look at it as more of a merger. And at the same time, we should look at what would it look like in 10 years. And what CEO Moore is describing might be the best model for 10 years from now, but I don't want to presume it's the best model. And I don't want to presume there may not be a transition where we need to have a more cohesive advisory at the RD side to give our senior staff on the fire services and emergency services better direction as directors on how to approach these contract negotiations. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe it will be the best model in 10 years, but I don't want to presume that is the only path.
So that would be different direction to your staff for what we're looking at. So just to be clear, what we're looking at is a legal bylaw setting up an advisory committee that has delegated authority off of the charter. If in the context what you were discussing, that would require the direction of your, already city staff.
And that's good. Let's see where it goes.
So bottom line is what we're. So we'll move on to. Oh, Dan. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I am brand spanking new in this lovely role, trying to fill Regional Fire Chief Feist's big shoes. And just a question to CAO Moore around timing. And what I'm wondering about is how I can get up to speed on this. I've got a lot of files that I'm trying to catch up to, and right now the balls that I'm juggling are still in the clouds, and I'm trying to catch them as they're falling out of the clouds. This is a new one. Caught it right before it hit the ground. But I'm wondering what the timing is and how we could have a little bit of time just to better understand where the RD from a staffing standpoint can get direction from the board and then also have a position on this.
Certainly, probably your best avenue would be reaching out to Jared Brielle, our Director of Protective Services.
That's great. And so did you have a timeline within that yet, or that's still being worked through as well?
Well, our goal was to have a workshop with the elected officials for the first week of February.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Some people here might be interested in the next item. Economic action plan.
So once again, it's been quite evident in the community that everybody is very much looking forward to walking and talking the EAP and where it's going and what it's going to look like. Certainly, community has interest in a variety of ways of participating and partnering, at the very least from a stakeholder point of view. And so it was incumbent upon me to make sure that we get this on the agenda, because our understanding is that we were to have a workshop already passed by now to discuss things like governance, never occurred to us yet. But I do now know that there are some invitations for a workshop coming to have this discussion, to which we've already started chatting, and I believe is it January? That's going to be occurring. So that's good news to be able to let the community know that we are moving ahead to have that workshop. Right now, it's based on the governance piece of it. But that's the important piece to allow our community to start participating, engaging, moving forward. I think is an accurate summary.
Yeah, and Mike, you get one.
So yeah, and thank you. So I brought up CAO Horn's staff report to this group. Unfortunately, it's October of 2024, but I want to fill in the gap how we got to today. So when this report came out, and it's important if you go back and refresh your, because it it talks very specifically about what the issues and problems with the AP are in terms of, basically CAO Horn points out, the current silo approach is taking place with the AP, some of the opportunities and the importance of that governance discussion that involves the RDCK services SO1 and S107 in the service as well. So that's all still very valid. And so the most important part was that governance. Coming into this year, there was an opportunity because we felt, well, if we're going to look at governance, we could do a little bit of a refresh on the strategic plan. We applied for a grant from ETSI. The grant amount that we applied for was about close to $100,000 with a contribution from the service. It turns out that we didn't get the answer till June, and then we only got a fractional amount of it, and it would not cover the project. So that was in latter part of June. By the time I caught up with Stuart through the summer because that's what we're going to fund a consultant with. What we decided to do was just focus in on the governance. We'll do a refresh of the strategic plan once we do that governance review when we decide that direction. This committee would decide that direction long-term regarding economic development. We're funding that through the town through some economic development reserves that we've been hanging on to. So it's a fairly minimal amount for the workshop. And that sort of takes us to the date. Once we realized that we weren't going to use that grant funding, we're going to turn it back to ETSI because our contribution got so much bigger that it wasn't worthwhile for us to try to contemplate spending that money. So we're going to turn that back, and then by the time you start looking for consultants in January, very quickly, because nobody's instantly available. Plus, your guys' schedule, UPCM. So that's how we filled that time. We also that. So.
Okay. I would, if I may, looking forward to that. In my email chains, I'm also interested in hearing if there's any specific interest, expressions of interest from the community in that regard. I know that it's been important to them, so I'm sure that there's been some communique that's gone out. I may not have been privy to, but certainly I would encourage that flow of information through to our CAO, because I think it's relevant to our conversation that's going to be upcoming.
I do not have any formal presentations at this time. And I think that the most important part, regardless of those proposals, is that the governance discussion takes place. Like, say, if you refresh yourself with that report from October 2024 from CAO Horn, those issues have to be addressed, which would really then form the proposals and contracts that you'd be seeking in the future. There's a number of
2024.
Yeah, it was for the October 3rd, 2024 meeting.
Could have been part of this today.
No, it's not. I just scanned that agenda. It's not on the public.
Oh, and you're correct. It would be
I
the items on there would be in count.
Yeah. So.
Oh.
We'll have our conversation later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
We can't find it. We'll ask Robin if she can distribute it to us.
It'll be there.
Great.
Okay. Next is the town Creston Library Warming Center, Craig.
Through the chair, this follow-up to discussion item at last meeting regarding the town of Creston and the library, proposing the library be a secondary warming center. Community services overseeing that facility have no objection to that, and the library has submitted a formal request to the RDCK as the landlord. There are staff in this meeting today that work in that office that have some concerns that they'd like to raise at this point for the committee.
Would that be you, Catherine?
No, it's for RDCK staff.
Oh, okay.
That'd be,
all right.
here.
Who's speaking to that?
Eric is.
Okay. Eric, go ahead.
Well, thank you. Through the chair. Few things I just wanted to bring to the attention of the committee regarding this proposal. This proposal, it does entail sleeping overnight in this space. And I don't believe that the building currently has this type of occupancy use compliance with the BC building code. So that's something that needs to be looked at. As I don't believe this building has any provisions for sleeping or overnight accommodations, whatever that looks like. A couple other aspects regarding staff is at times we get in there early. I know myself, I'm sometimes in there anytime between 6 and 7 in the morning, depending where I'm working in the RDCK. And there's a washroom that's attached to this proposed area, this multi-purpose area that is, it's the only washroom that the building department staff and staff for the RDCK in our office there is our dedicated washroom. And accessing this is requirement. It's also a requirement of the code to make sure that it's available as well. And there's also a layer of security. We have a pretty high level IT server database right adjacent this space. So there's a security concern with people in there overnight. I could go on a little bit more about the washroom, but I just also want to, you know, over the years in this space, the use of that back washroom has been a bit of a struggle for the staff in there at times to even access it when it's dedicated for availability. I know that the needs of the community are growing in that multi-purpose room. It's seeing more bookings. And now if there's consideration for an overnight warming center, this does raise some concerns for safety for my staff. And as well, also just as paramount, you know, we got to make sure it conforms to the BC Building Code.
I think that Mike can answer that question, but my understanding is the only reason this would ever be used is the complete failure of the other buildings that are available, as in power failures, flooding, whatever else we have. So, Mike, you want to clarify that?
Yeah, so this is just through the chair, this is just through the, as part of having secondary and tertiary backup locations for a warming center. So to answer the question, there is no sleeping. It is not a sleeping. It's literally a warming center for the communities in the event of you lose power or if you, you know, so it's for a broader use than just, but it has no sleeping. It's just a warming center, literally, that's funded through emergency management. I was unaware about the issue with regarding access to the bathroom or whatever, but you know, I'll leave that as, you know, again, we do have to have washroom facilities. But anyhow, whenever a warming center is set up, there is a minimum of 2 staff plus security guards that are set up as well. So it's certainly well staffed, but that's all I can comment on.
And we also have an agreement to staff a warming center should there be one open, because we've got employees that are ready and able to go staff a warming center. So they would be probably, if needed, go to this spot. So we will have staff.
Yeah, no, it would be at the town staff.
Exactly.
Warming center. So there'd be a minimum three staff. So 2 staff working the warming center, 1 security guard minimum.
Yeah. Director Chair.
Sorry, Chair, to
That's it.
interrupt. I just want to let you know that Eric Stout has put in the message he's lost audio. So if he's lost audio, he can't be engaging in this conversation very well. You might want to give it a moment. And sorry, I'm just messaging him to see if he can even hear us.
But have to just unplug his headsets, go with performance.
I think maybe I can make an assumption here, especially if we lost audio, is that at this point, Eric can liaise with our town staff to for other concerns, but again, this is a low likelihood that this will be needed. So to have that discussion as to what the logistics are on this could be a follow-up to this meeting. Go ahead.
I just want to add, I wish Eric was able to, and Mike has confirmed one of those items. I was sitting at the board with the library board at the time the presentation was made by Chief. The only other issue that pops up is the SOP portion of it, the procedure. Generally, this will take place after hours. The concern that was raised by the board is that there are items within that room that ought to get secured. And so what is that procedure whereby they would get notified that they can come in and secure any of those items? Yes, in addition to emergency staff being there, but they still need to be aware that there are prints up on the wall and that sort of thing that need to be secured. So there's that SOP portion. That's just an administrative function, but it was something that was raised by the board as a concern. Just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Had you finished your comments, Director Tierney?
No, I haven't started.
Okay,
Sure, but thank you. Yeah, so what I hear from CEO more is that this is not envisioned to be a warming hut for people that are homeless in town. This is for emergency purposes, where perhaps there's a larger event that affects the town, power outage. I believe that that space is large enough. One washroom, adequate enough. We may be looking at needing a facility, something like at the rec center, where there is enough space and facilities to support that type of emergency.
So this was not meant to have a long conversation with, so I think what I'll have is staff just pull this from the plan, because this is part of a much larger emergency extreme weather response plan that we have to have, and it's scalable, and it's about having backup locations for the size of the event. There's a whole bunch of criteria. So to your point, is it the right location is set up for the right event? But you know, to make this a little bit simpler is just, I think that we'll just back away from the request in that library space. And because there's just, it's just a backup to all the things that we're doing. It's not worth the conversation we're talking about.
Chair, there's a couple notes I don't know if you saw in chat, just to let you know Eric's audio is fine now. But also there's a note from Board Chair Watson that our delegation has his sound working now for everyone to get him, and the Director Popoff is leaving the meeting.
Okay. So, yeah, we'll move on, because again, this is not likely to happen, and we will have more of a backup plan. So rather than doing the final item, if the delegation is now able to communicate with us, George, you're finally on, I hope.
How's this? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, success. Okay, thank you, Chair. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Go ahead, yes.
Can you guys see investing in our community's youth?
We sure can.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So who we are, we're the Creston FC. Right now, we're one of the Valley's largest youth sports organizations. We're dedicated to providing accessible community-centered football programs, and we serve lots of families through this area. We're growing. Football, soccer is an exciting time right now with FIFA, Whitecaps doing well, and the female team Rise winning in Vancouver as well. So right now we support 250 spring summer families. We've actually just started our year-round program, and we have 100 winter players as well going through the fall and into the winter here. Soccer, football is the most played sport in Canada. Yes, it is more than hockey. The reason that I'm coming to you guys today, or the board and the chair, or the committee, sorry, is that we do have limited access to the rec center and KRSS fields throughout the year, which significantly hampers our programming. The overcrowded conditions prevent adequate training and playtime for our youth, often resulting in missed opportunities for skill development, community engagement. Example of this is not so much that it's an issue with booking with the RDCK, it actually has to do more with daylight hours, which I'll talk about a little bit more here. So inadequate spaces, there'd be the CEC. So although the Creston Education Center provides a good space for our younger groups, the field itself is not regulation size for us to actually be holding any sort of games or tournaments and do proper training for those kind of games. We don't have lights on any of the fields. So once the sun goes down, the practices are over due to safety concerns. And 3:30 p.m. is the earliest that we can actually book any of these fields due to obviously the children being in school, as well as potentially other programs that they might have for their educational needs. Why this investment matters: youth sports improve health, equity, community belonging, and attract young families into the Valley. We've been seeing a lot of excitement over the past year and a half as we've rebranded and really pushed to grow after the COVID epidemic. We estimate that our first annual Jamboree had an economic impact of around $200,000. We just had that this year. We plan to do it again, and we would like to be bigger. But we run into the problem with the fields that we have currently. So as I was saying, with a bunch of the numbers here, you could see 16.6 million women and girls play football globally. It's up 25% since 2019. The fan base continues to grow, up 300 million by 2030. And then 60% of the fans will be women. So right now we have coaches that are supporting the female soccer participation and female soccer development exclusively. They're taking special programs, and we're actually offering those currently in our fall and winter programs as well. So really pushing for that. Here you can see a little bit more of the breakdown of players only, 90,000 for that Jamboree. And then on the higher end, if we had a player plus 1.5 companions, we'd be at 225,000. So we really want to contribute more to the Valley's success and the economic impact with the businesses and everything that surrounds us, as well as building more of a culture around Creston FC. We've also rebranded with the our logo and our actual brand being Creston focused. And we actually got our logo is based off of the Creston coat of arms. So it's just really trying to tie everything community. It's not just about football, it's soccer, it's about the community at large. So what do we need? I had already talked a little bit about this here with the community and health benefits and into what our community needs. So there's several options here. And we're just trying to explore getting more access to facilities so that we can actually expand our programs, because we do see the need. We just don't have the facility. So turf field with lights is one of those to extend the usable hours. An indoor facility would help us for our winter and fall programs, as we'd be able to continue year round without having to worry about bookings and the actual weather impacts. Kinsman rehabilitation, so very large field that'd be able to support a full-size game or be able to break into our small-sided games for tournaments, and then also continuous exploration for other local spaces throughout the community. Thank you all for your support and giving me the time on the floor.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead, Director Vandenberg.
Great, thank you. Thank you, George, for presenting to us today. So you presented a lot of information, very short period of time. We did not have anything to digest prior to your presentation. I guess for me to be able to determine how I might assist you, you made some economic claims that I need to verify, but financials, where you're at, what your membership looks like, a business case you've got 4 major pieces there, and a business case that talks about some cost estimates or some expansion on that. And then at the end of that, what is it that you're needing assistance with, understanding that there's a variety of sports groups out there in our community today that we need to consider. So if this is an introduction, that's something more is going to come to us in the future, that's great. I'm just outlining what it is that I like to see in order to understand what it is that you're asking for.
Yes, of course. So maybe just to reiterate the points that you said, it would be sending the members of this committee and the chair the business case, right? So that you guys had more time to digest these numbers and see what the impact was.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, George. Sorry to keep you waiting so long. We have a big agenda.
I appreciate your flexibility. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll move that to discussion of direct facility, Creston areas A, B, and C, and service S 224.
Through the chair, this report is in front of the committee to show progress in the development of the budget in a couple of areas. Number one, there's a couple of additional expenses that were added that are mentioned in the report. General administration increasing 19,000, and then in transfer to other services, which is for regional training, it's a net 5,000 increase, so a reduction in salaries and other expenses, and then increase in transfer to other services. So that's where that $26,000 and change comes from. The bigger conversation is the last time we presented the capital budget, there was a number in the overhead administration that was $700,000, and that was done as a way of preparing the committee and the board for a potential receipt of a tender submission for the refrigeration project that at the time of tendering, we had been told by the consultant is actually going to be quite a bit higher than we had budgeted for. And in fact, we were told that if we had budgeted $1 million, it might even come in at 1.7. So that number was there and done in such a way, presented in such a way so that during the open tender, we didn't let the potential proponents, bidders know that that was what we were going to approve the budget number. So luckily, the actual market, and there is a report going to the board at the December 11th meeting recommending the tender award, given that this is combined with Nelson and Creston. This committee and the rec committee, Commission and Nelson, couldn't independently make that recommendation to the board. So they were the Rec 5 was notified, advised, as this committee is being advised, that that tender was received. You'll see in the report that the bids that were received and the qualified bids that were received in that process. And for this service in particular, 1.089 million for the refrigeration work. And so staff are recommending that, you know, with that includes a contingency of 10%, but we're just going to also have a bit of a buffer there to ensure that we can get this work done without having to come back to the board for additional funds should there be any complications. So we're recommending 1.25 million for that. So what that does is the overall capital plan for S224 for this year is 1.325. And so based on last conversation at 1.775, we've got some money left over that we can have conversations about potential use for capital funding and hearing what, you know, is currently on the table for development for sports fields, baseball, soccer, etc. That could be something that we talk about with this committee, but just to let you know that money has been reallocated inside of the budget. So there'll be a inside of the draft budget, and the comparison, staff showed the comparison with the last draft and this draft. So we show that the net transfer from reserves going down significantly. The prior year surplus because of the actuals for capital this year going down a little bit, but the overall impact is that the capital number is significantly less than it was. So that means we have more capital potential for future years, if not this year. A couple of the options, and when we're talking about increase to baseball or improvements to the baseball fields and hearing what soccer had just said, one of the things that we have been planning in S224 since the completion of the park on the east side of the property, so the skate park, pickleball courts, and the basketball court, etc., is that now the lower half, the west side of the field, the property has to be conceptualized and brought for community engagement for what it could be. And so in the next draft budget, you will see a number that is a recommendation to hire a firm to do a conceptual plan for what we could do with those 6 or 7 acres, call it 2 hectares plus, for sports field development. And right now we have a full-size ball field, a smaller ball field, and a larger soccer pitch. And whether or not those are the current or future configurations that the community could be engaged with, because the needs and what's available aren't necessarily in alignment. So if there's money to be invested in sports fields, we should have that conversation. The other thing that's happening, and I did meet with town council staff yesterday, is there is and this is in a public council meeting. So Rotary has brought a proposal to town council to upgrade Centennial Park to a significant amount. And so that may or may not conflict with our plans or our suggested plans to improve our ball fields and our sports fields. So we're going to suggest that we talk to the town more in depth about how we could leverage funding for conceptual plans for not only our projects, but also some of theirs. And so that may come to this committee at the January as a request from the town or as a request from staff with a report to recommend how we can leverage the funding for landscape architect services and community engagement for those pieces. Essentially, that's the report as far as the update on the budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dr. Vandenberg.
So I'm understanding, thank you through the chair, thank you, Greg. I'm understanding that originally you're asking for 1.7, now you're saying that it's down to 1.3. Should we throw some money over to the side and maintain the 1.7? Is I think what I'm hearing.
Yeah, the option is that, currently that money's been reallocated to stay in reserves. So it's in reserve. So the current budget shows it as not being spent from reserve. So it's still in reserve. So there's and the other part about this is we are recommending still that 60,000 for an in-depth facility condition assessment to inform a more reliable, longer capital investment plan. So those reserves could be used. But the other part of the budget that I did is the 105,000 in accumulated operating surplus. That's not been brought forward in the actual surplus, but we know it's there because it's unspent. So that is also part of the conversation for discretionary spending.
Okay, so I'd like to know what this conceptual plan is going to cost. I'm going to tell you right now that if we're not spending the money, we give the money back to our taxpayers. But the conceptual plan for the sports fields makes sense. But until we get business cases on any of this, I am hesitant for throwing money at the taxpayers' cost off to the side and with no plan. So let's have a plan first before we start taxing taxpayers for potential thinking that we haven't even thought through yet. So that's my.
So through the chair, so the reserves are going to be retained. So we'll have about 400,000 in reserves more.
But then we don't have to put any more into reserves if we just don't spend this money. Like the difference between 1.4 and 1.3 and 1.7 is $400,000. So let's talk about $400,000. So you're suggesting that's just going to move into reserves.
Correct.
But at the same time, we're taxing for reserves to be built.
Through the chair in this service, we aren't.
Okay.
Through the chair, there's no requisitions that are going to reserves this year.
Thank you. And then, so the next thing is, if the conceptual plan is a great idea, but we don't have any idea as to what that's going to cost.
Through the chair, yeah. And so part of the accumulating operating surplus, the 105,000 that we didn't spend in 2025, we will bring a report to the committee after having more conversation with town and Creston staff for the opportunities to leverage a larger suite of projects that a firm could provide, and we could have an estimate for that. If I was going to put a number at what a conceptual plan would be for the sports field, it'd be between $15,000 and $25,000, including engagement.
Right.
We'll bring that report to the committee in January.
And I look forward to that report. I am letting you know that because we have some, doesn't mean we have to spend it. It needs to be invested for good decision-making for the future. If it does not have a specific outcome, a proper business case, from me, I'm not interested in spending the money.
So I would have to disagree. I think. Go ahead, Joe.
Through the chair. Always a problem when we start presenting financial plans as they're being developed. To note, what I'm hearing, hearing you, Director Vandenberg, we will ensure that any case that we bring forward, we bring what we're trying to attempt to do. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about is that when we came out of the planning and we developed the top part of the park, we were at the time, the commission, staff, the community were thinking about continuing that planning work, but looking at the bottom part of the fields. At that time, there was a decision made to put a pause on that because we just finished coming out of a whole bunch of different construction. So what we're hearing in the community, and this is for the directors to communicate back to us, but what we believe that we're hearing in the community is that there is a desire to take a look at whether it be, we'll just call it sport playing fields for right now, that there's a number of packages around that. So that's what we'll try to give you a scope of what that might look like in order to do that evaluation. But right now, whether it be the soccer presentation at this point in time, or whether it be the previous baseball presentations, I think we are in the same ballpark as the directors. There is something that we need to put together here to make sure that we're not responding to different requests as one-offs. We need to somehow bring this together into something that we can conceptualize as a community, and also making it broader than just talking to the groups that are coming to the table here. So we'll make sure that we do that, but know that that conceptual plan is not a plan to do something necessarily. It might be better, instead of calling it a conceptual plan, almost saying a feasibility analysis for what could be for the fields, and then what the best way of attacking these projects that the community is bringing forward. So we will work on those pieces.
I fully support what you say, Joe, and I think this is an opportunity for us to come up with a plan and have that opportunity to do some of the things that our community are strongly asking us to do, because there's a need there. And if we have an opportunity now to start to meet that need, because we actually have money we haven't spent. I'm not saying we spend it all, but I'm saying we take a good look at the plan and put some of that money to use for those fields. And when you see all the kids playing soccer and the kids playing baseball and the need that's there, we can't overlook it. It's something that more that we can support that, better off we'll be in our community. And so tournaments bring in money. We don't have a great capacity for tournaments. We could have. I think we need to really pay attention to these requests, and if there's a way that we can help them, we do that. And I know it comes from taxpayers, but it benefits everybody, even the people that don't want to pay it. It still benefits them in some way. Their grandkids, cousins, nieces, nephews, whoever it is.
And I totally agree, but what I'm saying is we need a plan.
Yep.
Okay, so thought has to be put into a plan that benefits the whole for the future. And that's where it's gotta start. And that starts with developing a business case and conceptualizing a feasibility plan, having a plan. And then we can really start talking about allocation of funding. So.
Go ahead, Gary.
So let's stop calling it a plan. Joe just tried to impart a little bit of wisdom in his last few months with us. It's not a plan. The scope for this consultant will be outdoor field development options. I mean, one option is put a 10-foot high reinforced concrete retaining wall around the perimeter of the slope. And would that give us 20% more footprint? And that might be a viable option if it meant something would fit better. If you really want to go to community and say, hey, you want this, here's your expectations, here's how much it'll cost. Because it's just not that big. So it's not a plan, it's options. So thank you, Joe. Stop using the plan word. I support development of options on the full spectrum so that people's expectations can be tailored, or you just go somewhere else, quit looking at this little patch of grass. The only thing I can think of for short-term direction of staff is I see where, you've adjusted for that $400,000 appropriately in terms of how everything fits in your budget. I'm assuming year-to-date is October, the year-to-dates.
This actually in this report could be November.
Oh, so it's newer. So your year-end surplus should be, surplus is a bad word. The amounts of money you're caring for between ongoing capital and or unexpended funding that's available, they should be pretty accurate.
Yes.
The only short-term adjustment I would say here, because this isn't saying spend any hundreds of thousands on anything, is tag the number for the installment best you can and take it out of that 33,000 minor contribution you're showing to reserve. And maybe in fact, just state this year's contribution to reserve will be zero because the most recent major capital project has come in favorably. And so right now we're looking at a 4.3% lift. If they take just the 33,000 contribution reserve, just zero it out, we still have 3.6% lift. That's what we're dealing with, kind of in that range, unless we draw more money from reserve. But right now, the only direction I'd say is, yeah, show us the line item for your best guess for this review of options for outdoor space. Zero the contribution reserve. We're gonna end up with something at 4% lift, and then we can re-engage conversation. This is a big enough service. We shouldn't be embarrassed if we have 2 financial plan amendments through the year. That's fine. This is a big service. So we don't have to predetermine where we're gonna spend hundreds of thousands, just leave it in that reserve.
Joe?
Well, plus through the chair, I was thinking I had something else, but Director Jackman covered it all.
Thanks. All right, so you have your direction there, I assume, and looking forward from there. Thank you very much. Last item on this agenda is the action item list. Is there anything you want to comment on or?
Yeah, we didn't write the, here it is, item 6. Staff work with library to develop policy around capital reserve and investment to establish how the reserve fund is being spent. So, I guess Director Vandenberg is fairly involved with the library group now. I had a couple-hour coffee conversation on Sunday. I've done a little work since then. Is this item just out of date? Because what the library is looking at is, continued lobbying to the province. They've shown us options for what they'd like to see in terms of supporting hours of operation. We're about to launch a major fundraising campaign where there's one initial target set. And I came up with some quick math, said you have to double that or more. It's not a 1 year, it's a 3-year minimum program. I'm just wondering if we should take that off. There's so much other stuff underway. That they're carefully reviewing what reserves they hold, if they're going to run down them, how quickly, and how they can generate a little bit of revenue in the meantime. So is that a worthwhile item to leave on this list, or we just let what else is going on and then come up with a new direction staff once we sort of refocus on the library's future financial picture, if they actually start and get some money through donations as they hope?
I don't disagree that at this point in time, it's not a high priority item. But I think there's value to at leaving it on there because developing a policy around reserves is an important piece. It does provide, it allows us to financially take a look at what the commitment's going to be. It also allows the entity to understand what they can and cannot do. So I think the value of having a policy is there. Is it a high priority at this point with all the moving pieces? Agreed. It's probably not, but I don't know if by saying that a policy in terms of reserves is not important. I don't agree with that. I think it is important. It actually says a lot and helps us and helps anyone to understand their flow of cash that they need.
If I could share, so I mean, we need our own policy if it's gonna come to that, once we have our, as Craig said, next year, facility review and sort of refine our capital asset management plan. And I hope at some point the policy board's gonna make is you're gonna have a financial asset management plan and then you're gonna need reserve contributions to match that. So you have to the plan, that'll be our policy. I'm just thinking, what effort would our staff go into to help this entity, the society develop their own policy? I think they're heading down that path on their own. They've talked to lots of other groups, they've talked to foundations, investment opportunities. I left out in my 2-3 page narrative that I supplied them, what I see as other opportunities where there's some wisdom within KES and other options where they can find out how to manage their money. They've already talked to, Edward Jones. I think they're well down that path that I didn't want our staff to have to do.
Yeah, no, you're right. Actually, that's, my dissertation really applies to generally anything that's around reserves. But working through our asset management process, I think that those things will come to light. So I'm just gonna change my thought there for policies around reserves are important, the timing of which and how we get there. This is suggesting specific work on the library. Maybe that's not adequate. We should probably remove that. I would agree with that.
Well, you have a golden opportunity as sitting on the library board now to encourage them to develop policy.
Sure.
And so I think that may be a more direct way to do this than do it through staff.
Yeah, and then of course I agree. I would agree with you now. Now I see how the debate works.
Yeah, there we go. You come with an open mind, as do I sometimes. So we're gonna put this on the ready to remove list so they can
Put some lines through it.
Yeah, okay, remove it, and we've nominated Creston Lines to do your part in the library board, so.
It gets lines to it first, then it gets removed. Okay.
And number 5, staff has arranged a meeting, coming up in January, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Lines through it.
For the EAP, yeah.
Governance conversation, yeah.
Yep.
So strike that one as well.
Lines through it.
Yeah, I guess that is now going to be in progress. We're
And
waiting
next
for
month
this
we'll
stuff.
actually remove it.
Yep.
Joe can't retire till this list goes down to 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hold that statement. Hold that statement.
Yep. Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess. We convene in closed session. And again, we'll have to talk back.
Just in the next meeting.
I.
Alter.
Oh,
Sorry. Is there anyone online that would like to ask a question before we recess this meeting? We have time for public time. There's nobody here, but is there anybody online?
Yes,
there's
there's
That's
2 public.
Okay. Any questions from our 2 public online?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
George, you and I could talk across the street to each other.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Before should we move to exclude the public meeting?
Yeah, motion to put the meeting.
And recess or reconvene.
Yeah. Sure. Second in the chair.